Hello everybody, James here, Story Time with Dutch Mantell, episode 68. Before we get to the crafty veteran Dutch Mantell himself, we're going to do some plugs as we always do, and we're going to speed through these because goodness me, we've got a lot to talk about today. First off, I've got two books. Number one is Owen, Hart, King of Pranks, and number two, I've smashed my microphone, Dutch. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, the People's Champion. Don't you disapproving of me already? This has got to be a record for the time. Dutch has got two books as well, of course. The World According to Dutch and Tales from a Dirt Road. And if you don't believe me, they're over his left shoulder right now that he's going to point to. If you want them unsigned, you order them from Amazon. If you want, well, Dutch's books anyway. If you want them unsigned, go to Amazon. If you want them signed, you make your request at Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. Give us 5 stars on iTunes if you can be bothered. We've got t-shirts hopefully coming out quite soon on prowrestlingtees.com. I'll sort that out when I get a chance. I've got my weekly show with Shane Douglas at Shane Douglas official YouTube channel and everywhere you get your podcasts. And I think that's pretty much it. We made some people unhappy, Dutch, last week with our most loved and most hated podcasts segment.
No, we didn't. Some people got upset with us.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Who?
I think Vince Russo was fairly unhappy.
Unhappy with both of us?
Probably just you.
Me?
I don't know.
Oh, just me. I'm used to it.
He seemed to be relatively unhappy that him and Conrad came first and second.
Mm-hmm. They came first and second on what?
The least liked podcasters.
Now, who voted on this? The listeners?
Our listeners did, yeah.
Oh, our listeners did. Oh, I got it now. I got it. And they didn't like that.
Yeah, pretty much. They were first and second on the least appreciated. But there you go. Tough luck, innit?
Well, hey, we're just the messenger.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger.
Hey, we didn't get to vote, remember?
Well, you could have done, but you didn't realise there was a vote happening.
Oh, really? Well, there's a lot of things I don't realize. But we got a lot of news this week. A lot. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get us started, I am ready to go.
Well, before we get to the news, do you want to announce who we're having on as a guest today?
Today, I have a special guest, and it's a guy I've known for years and years and years. Bobby Fulton, a founding member of the Fantastics that will join us. And if you've never heard him, he talks a mile a minute, very entertaining. And I've never had him on the show. And I got in touch with him. I said, I'd like you to appear on Storytime with Dutch. And he says, okay. And we got him lined up. We're waiting for him. And as soon as we go through this news, which we have a lot, we're going to get Bobby on here. And he's going to tell some stories. And I'll tell you if he's lying right when he starts out, and then he may have to correct himself. But I'm really looking forward to this.
With in fact, Bobby, I think, was supposed to come on my show some time ago, and then he couldn't make it for whatever reason. But we'll talk to I'll sit out and you'll talk to Bobby for a good hour or so later on in the show. But for now, we've got to go with the news. And I thought I had all the news today, and then you messaged me about 30 minutes ago and said, "Hey, have you seen what's going on with Fox and WWE and everything?" So I had a look, and here's the TKO press release, TKO being WWE and UFC's new name since the merger.
Just released. Well, this comes out Friday. It just released yesterday. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's just been released like in the last 30 or 45 minutes.
The press release, I'll only give you the short version. NBC Universal and TKO Holdings have agreed to a 5-year domestic media rights partnership that will bring Friday Night SmackDown back to USA Network beginning October 2024. Additionally, beginning in the 2024-25 season, WWE will produce 4 primetime specials per year that will air on NBC, marking the first time WWE will air on network in prime time. Or on the network, at least. As part of WWE and NBC Universal's long-standing relationship, USA Network is currently home to WWE NXT and blah, 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 blah. So, we don't know what's going to be happening with NXT and Raw yet, but you told me this, and I think I got it slightly wrong. I said somewhere else 1.5 billion. You said 1.4 billion is what WWE, or TKO, excuse me, has managed to generate for SmackDown for 5 years?
$1.4 billion.
More than I'm making a week, that, seriously.
Yeah. I tell you, I need a raise on this podcast stuff. But 1.4 billion over 5 years, that's 300 million a year almost, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's now years and years and years ago, how this is filtered down, they treated wrestling as like a paid commercial. And they would charge the companies to show their tape. And when they finally found out, well, it does a hell of a number. Memphis, I'll go by a Memphis rating. They were on at 11 o'clock every Saturday morning live. And they did numbers. They did ratings that was equal to prime time. I mean, it was beating NBC and CBS and ABC. But back in those days, you only had the three major networks. I think Fox was just trying to get started up. But the wrestling show did, I mean, just in Memphis, they had a viewership of about, I think, between 400,000 and 500,000 on Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Of course, we've talked about that before.
And population was what, like 700,000 or something like that, was it?
Well, the area was probably 1.5 million, probably.
Oh, sorry.
Is the city was only about 400,000 then, bigger now, but it was, and they didn't even pay Jerry Jarrett. They didn't even pay Jerry Jarrett for the show. What they did a barter deal where they wouldn't charge him anything if he would just put the show on, and they would just go back. I guess they got all the commercial money, so they really came out on the better end of the deal. But anyway, that money for WWE and Endeavor, or TKO, what does TKO stand for?
Tony Khan something.
That's what I was thinking. Tony Khan Organization. Hey, that's a good name for it. But 1.4 billion for well, they get 104 weeks a year. I mean, 52 weeks a year, 2 hours. That's when I got 104 hours. That's what I'm talking about. And it's going to pay off for them because they're going to USA and NBC. Where are they going?
So they're going to the USA Network, and they're going to be doing primetime specials per year on NBC in primetime. I want to bring up...
see, wrestling made USA Network.
Yeah.
It made it.
Well, I think that's why they're buying it back for this huge amount of money, because without WWE, USA Network would be dead in the water. I mean, Raw, even with the sagging ratings at the moment because of the NFL and everything else, is propping up that channel. So they're desperate to get WWE back, and apparently at almost any cost, to bring USA Network back to prominence in the ratings.
So what were they getting from Fox?
So, I'm glad you asked. It was announced in 2018, June 26th, that the 2019 start, I think it was in October, they were getting $205 million per year from 2019 to 2024. So what does that work out as? Just over $1 billion. And I think Raw was bought by USA Network for a fairly similar amount as well.
Well, they got them a nice little raise. From 205 million?
Yeah, 205 to what? I don't know, 285 million a year, something like that, let's say.
That's a pretty good bump. Hey, I read something the other day, and it says they were asking Vince, Vince had a company-wide meeting, I read, and where he was talking to the employees, and he said that WWE had plateaued and they had to make changes for its next advancement. And I'm thinking, well, what the hell is the next? What could that be? Did you read that?
I did read that. Maybe it was like, I don't know, first wrestling promotion on Mars. I don't know what they could be doing next. Because I won't give them ideas. Max Moon, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be good. But I'm thinking, what could they do to beat this? Oh, while we're talking about it, I want to bring this up. Mm-hmm. A lot of debate over whether The Rock is going to make WrestleMania 40.
We will be getting to The Rock. We will be getting to The Rock a little later. Before we do that, though, I do bear with me. We will be... in fact, I want to bring this up to you. Raw has been doing absolutely the worst views they've ever done, apart from like one best of show. That can be attributed to the NFL. But the problem is that while SmackDown's doing really good viewership numbers for the most part, probably not hurt by the fact that there's a writer's strike and there's just a lot of repeats going on in American TV at the moment, is that that's sort of what is killing Raw. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, because ABC's now showing the NFL as well as ESPN, aren't they? Is that right?
I'll take your word for it, maybe.
Oh, okay, so basically NFL's on network TV going against Raw as well as ESPN, where it would normally be. And that's what's just absolutely murdering Raw's numbers at the moment. So I'm wondering how much Raw will get, because SmackDown's been doing some of the best viewership they've been doing since 2019, 2020. Now Raw's doing the worst viewership of all time, but it's because of the NFL. But I wonder how that's going to affect the price for Raw and not NXT, but how much it'll affect Raw when those negotiations come up.
Interesting question. I wish I had an answer for it. But let me tell you one thing that hurts Raw, and it's hurt them forever. It's the third hour. It's hard to get somebody brother, if you told me, watch this movie, it's 3 hours, I said, screw that. I'm not doing that, because that's a commitment.
You ever seen Lord of the Rings? That's why I won't watch it. It's 3.5 hours of film.
No, I may have seen parts of Lord of the Rings, but for 3 hours, hey, give me, this is my limit, 2 hours to 2 hours and a half. I can go that. But when it gets to 3, nah, I'm not doing it. I saw a movie not too long ago, Oppenheimer. You see it?
No, I haven't had the chance to go and see it, no.
Great movie to 2 hours in, because, you know, it's about this guy named Oppenheimer who developed the hydrogen, the atomic bomb that the U.S. dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And it was good, telling the story up to the point that they finally dropped the bombs. And then the guy ends up going back to Washington and everybody ripping him a new one. And now he's not such a, I mean, if the last hour is just boring as hell. But it was a good movie up to then.
Another thing that we got mentioned of quite a lot is when you said, and I think I said as well, when we were talking about the podcasts, and you said, who can sit there and listen to a 5-hour podcast or a 4-hour podcast? And I should have brought up, and they were right to say that, there's a lot of people at work or a lot of people doing long drives that sort of use these podcasts as just like, almost like the radio, just like background noise almost. So for people in those situations, that's a great thing for them. I know this has nothing to do with what you were saying, but people who can put up with the length of like a very long film or a very long podcast, no, different circumstances.
Well, again, I'm talking myself. I'm talking personally. You know, but I couldn't listen to the same two guys talking for 3 hours. Listen, I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But, you know, Bruce Pritchard used to do those long-ass podcasts. Mm-hmm. He'd do 4 hours sometimes. And I said, well, what the hell could he talk about for 4 hours except reading War and Peace by, what's the guy's name, the Russian? Tolstoy. Yeah, but, I mean, I think you should always give people that they want more, but you don't give it to them right then. They got to wait till the next week to get it. So anyway, I'm a stickler on time, and a 3-hour movie or a 3-hour podcast, yeah, it's too much. 2 hours is enough, I think. That's my cutoff point.
We shall move on, and we will get to The Rock in a bit, I promise you. But we're going to talk about AEW's Grandslam Dynamite special at Arthur Ashe Stadium. It took place this past Wednesday. Now, a couple of notes from it. We're going to be talking a couple of things about Jon Moxley, but aside from Adam Cole, he managed to injure his own ankle pretty much immediately, just running down to the ringside. I think he did a little jump off the ramp, and he ended up hospitalizing himself. But the big one is Jon Moxley ended up sustaining a possible concussion. I think it was a mild concussion, and they ended up changing the finish, or Jon did, in the middle of the match between he and Rey Fenix. Now, one thing to clear up, apparently it wasn't the pile driver that gave him a concussion. It was a flip from Fenix onto Jon Moxley right at the beginning of the match before the bell sounded, and he had a concussion immediately, and he started getting more foggy. Then he got less foggy.
Before the match started?
Oh, yeah. He got a concussion before the match started.
I thought he got the concussion taking it.
No, I think everyone did. But the report coming out of it this morning was that it was actually a flip that Rey Fenix did on Moxley before the match started, and his entire body landed on his head.
So the finish that I saw, that you sent me, where Moxley loses, that wasn't the way it was supposed to end, right?
No. Jon Moxley was meant to retain.
So, are we going to watch this or no?
I can put it up for you, yeah. Why not? Give us 1 minute.
All right.
Okay, so I'm sorry I've got the overlay, everybody. It's, AEW stuff, although we have the right to use it very briefly for the criticism or comment or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we're going to watch the last 50 seconds of the match, and keep in mind that this was not the planned finish. Oh, hang on, this is a remix where there's music happening, so I'll just mute that. So anyway, that's the first pile driver. The ref counts 1, 2, and then he does an air count.
And he stops.
Because
that's not the finish.
Yep.
That's why he stops.
Yep.
Now watch these people at ringside. They raise hell. I said, what the hell's going on? See him stand up? Like, what's the deal?
He's got the old thumbs up, that guy there. You can't
now
see
he picks him up.
Oh, man.
And watch this. Boom. And, and I've been saying for a long time, somebody don't get their neck broken. That to me is a pretty dangerous move.
Well, thankfully, Ryan Satin here has done a slow motion of that first pile driver, so let's just move us out of the way there slightly.
Well, his head hits, and watch his shoulders go down.
Yeah.
See?
That's the old Steve Austin, Owen Hart situation, that, isn't it?
Now, for a guy, Moxley, who is his body, according to him, is not in the best shape it's ever been in, and why he would even agree to take that move. What's that move called?
Is what did they call
neck
it?
breaker?
It's a tombstone pile driver, but they call it sit out tombstone pile driver. Because normally with a tombstone, you go on your knees and then you can tuck your head and stuff. With a sit out, your head, if it goes wrong, your head has nowhere to go pretty much, unless it's maybe to the side slightly, but that's about it.
Well, I hope Moxley is okay, because the referee stopped the. But now you're telling me when he first got in the ring, he got the concussion before the match even started.
Yeah, we don't have footage of that. I'm sorry to say, because this was very, very last second. But
how long was this match?
1 sec. So the match itself went 11:35. So the report is that he ends up getting a concussion immediately. His eyes are glassy and glazed over. The commentary team are talking about, he's looking really knocked out there. But I think the commentary team thought he was selling, but actually he was just far gone. And then apparently he started clearing up as long as longer the match went. And then towards the end, he started fogging over again, and that's when he made the call to lose the belt, the AEW International Championship, unplanned, to Rey Fenix.
How would you like to have been Tony Khan sitting back there? What the hell? They changed, but they changed the whole deal up. What the hell? And you see that didn't seem like a big deal, but it could be, because You could have booked your next week on Moxley having the title. Mm. Now everything changes.
And now Tony Khan's in the back fearing for his life again with sorry, it's a CM Punk reference. With
you just had to do it, didn't you?
Of course
you just
I
had
did.
to bring up
Yes.
You just had to bring up CM Punk.
Yes, I just love the line "fearing for my life." I just thought it was so funny.
But I do really love AEW's backstage happenings because it's entertaining to me, and I hope it doesn't nobody gets hurt by it, but it gives us something to talk about, and I love that stuff.
Yep.
Because that's everybody in the back all jockeying for position at the same time. And that's when you have chaos. Mm-hmm. But one of those pile drivers Moxley took, if you got knocked out right before the match started, and why would Moxley, well, he may not have been thinking right. Why would he still take the pile driver like that?
Well, probably wasn't thinking right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And he took it twice.
Yeah, and the thing is with Fenix as well is he's right. Okay, so you've seen the Owen Hart pile driver with Steve Austin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Owen Hart's got some pretty big legs, but he's not a huge guy. And still, Steve Austin's head, it all went wrong, slipped down, whatever. Owen Hart did the same thing to Dan Severn. Clearly, he wasn't built for that. But Owen Hart was much bigger than Ray Fenix, who's got far skinnier legs, and it just strikes me. It's like someone like Rikishi, who used to do that exact same move. His legs were enormous. You can have like a 2-foot-long head like Boris Zukov and not hit your head on the canvas, But I think there's certain people who are built to be able to perform that move safely, and you have to have really big legs to do that. And Ray Fenix doesn't strike me as someone built to do that safely. Scott Steiner's another one who did it safely.
Well, I think that Moxley is taller than Fenix, and unless they work this out before exactly where to grab him, if you grab him too high, his head's going to be low, and so his head's going to hit the mat before your knees hit or your butt hits. So I'm glad he's okay, and I've been saying this. Some of these guys, they act like they've never tried these moves before or never took them. Ask me would I take that move.
Would you take that move, Dutch?
Hell no. Would I take it? I said, you got to be kidding. The Steiners used to have to beg me to take their clothesline. I said, guys, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Now, thinking back now, I should have. See, I told them I didn't want to take it. And I told the company I didn't want to take it. But, of course, they put you in the ring every time I'm with the Steiners. Either me or my partner is going to take it. So when it was my turn to take it, I'm thinking, I should have just laid there one night and not got up and then go and get it checked out. Because a neck injury is very hard to ascertain, or it's like a back injury. You can't tell because of all the nerves. So if you say you're in pain, they got to take your word for it. So I should have just laid there and for the next 2 years just picked up a check.
Yeah.
While I was out on the lake fishing. And I don't even fish, but I would have done something anyway.
Yeah. Lay there motionless, shit your pants, sue them.
Drink some beer.
Yeah.
And my back.
Have you ever been in a match, or do you know of a match, or like an important match, like a title match, something like that, where they've had to change the finish midway through because of injury or some other reason?
Not that I remember. No, I don't. So
we will.
But guys back in my day we didn't have all these killer moves. See, what gets me about wrestling today is you have these killer moves, but nobody sells them. I mean, they're up before the guy giving them the move is up. So what is the purpose of giving somebody a move if it's not registered? If you don't sell it, it just makes the business look bad. So but I'm sure Moxley laid there after that. So, and
we actually
he was hurt.
Yeah,
he was hurt.
We couldn't hear what Moxley said, but apparently he really yelled at the ref after the ref did the 1-2 thing. Like, Moxley just fucking, he swore and everything.
Well, he was saying something.
Yeah, he said just count it, so he'd do it again and then count it. I'll tell you what though, if Fenix genuinely didn't like hit Moxley's head on the mat, then man, he's got to be a really good worker, because that was like millimeter perfect if he genuinely didn't hit his head on the mat there twice.
Yeah, but you can see his shoulders coming down, and his head kind of turning. Oh, that's what I saw.
Now that might explain why Jon Moxley, in this quote I'm about to read you, says he has arthritis. Now, the quote is, "I live a very physical lifestyle, but nothing to me is worse or does more damage than just travelling. For years, it was like travelling was my job. The wrestling part was kind of a reward at the end of the day, but your life becomes travelling at a certain point in this game. It's really amazing how that adds up on your body and your joints. The doctor last year told me that I have the arthritis of a 70-year-old man. That was quite humbling. And that was a year or two ago, so by now it's like a 72-year-old man. So I don't move very well in the morning. Thank God shows are at nights, because by then I'm pretty loosened up. If wrestling shows took place in the morning like Saturday Morning Superstars, if we started doing those early territory-style studio TV tapings on Sunday mornings, I would retire. I'd be done, because a lot of times I can't even move before noon." That's a pretty sad state of affairs that he's in that much pain at that age. But a 70-year-old man's arthritis.
And people wonder, why did wrestlers take drugs? They took drugs because they were in pain and they were traveling so much. I mean, like I hear a guy in WWE now, I wrestled 150 days last year. 150 days? Hell, we used to do 300 and something. And sometimes twice on Sundays and twice on Saturdays. And drove without any kind of medical personnel in the dress. If you got hurt, you just better either get somebody to take you to the emergency room or call an ambulance. But you had no, medical personnel in the dressing room. Nothing. You didn't even have, I'm sure there were a lot of drugs in there, but you didn't even have an aspirin. So if you got hurt, you're on your own. Now, Moxley, since maybe he shouldn't have said that, because he might get hurt. And he may want some money out of Tony Khan and AEW. And the lawyer is going to go back and read, well, you had the body of a 72-year-old man. And you're all of a sudden surprised that you got hurt. So you got to watch what you say. But arthritis, you can't control that. It's like rheumatoid. I guess it's rheumatoid arthritis, I guess. But it's tough to go in that ring every night and trying to give them 100% when you're hurting. And I bet he's coming out of that ring every night and he's hurting. See, like, are you going to show something here with Kurt Angle in just a minute?
No, because that's off the Joe Rogan thing. I won't do that. We will talk about Kurt Angle after this, though. But yeah.
Well, anyway, I got some stories about him, so let's continue.
Well, I was going to say, because I know Jon Moxley's got some of his detractors, and he goes out there, really punishes himself. Even when I was at All in Wembley Stadium, he was doing the big old hardcore match, glass and tables and the whole bit, and he loves that kind of thing. Does someone like Jon Moxley, or someone like back in the day that we're all familiar with, Mankind, Mick Foley, do they paint themselves into a corner at some point in their careers by doing so much and giving so much of their bodies to the business, whether you like that style or not, that the body breaks down to a point that they can't do it anymore or do it at the same level? But then how do they sort of bring it back to a point where they can do a safer style and still remain as popular or as over as they were while they were doing this hardcore style?
I think Mick Foley did. He painted himself he painted himself into a corner. Hardcore. After the stuff that he did, if he went into the ring and didn't do that stuff, and a lot of that stuff is, I mean, it's hard to pull a chair and make it sound off at the same time. The main thing about Foley is I remember the match he had against The Rock, I think, where he was handcuffed. His hands were handcuffed behind him and he was on his knees. And I remember his wife and his 2 children, because they kept showing them. And Rock was bringing that chair in, not because he wanted to, but Mick told him, hit me. He said, I want you to hit me. And I really felt sorry for his kids, especially his little girl. She was horrified at ringside to see her daddy with his arms handcuffed behind him, and The Rock is bringing that chair home. So I think he did paint himself into the corner. Plus, he did all the other stuff. He did the tacks. He did the glass. He did the barbed wire.
And do you know when he was most over? When he put a sock on his hand and did a sock puppet.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He was entertaining. Now, ECW, I think they should have grown more when they were in that little building in Philadelphia. And they had a great show. But if you look out in a crowd, now if you look out in a WWE crowd now, you see almost, well, more men than women, but you see a lot of women out there, a lot. Mm-hmm. But if you look at an ECW crowd, you don't see hardly any women at all. And why do you think that is?
Because they're catering only to violence and men's stuff. Same with AEW. You look at the crowds there. Man, there's like one woman for every 50 guys, it seemed like. Yeah. Because
women don't respond to the violence like men do. I mean, they like it. Women are, they're horrified by it. I mean, if you see them turn their head like this, they don't want to see that. But you take the little sock and people go nuts because it's entertaining. Nobody's going to get really hurt by a sock on a hand. And they like that. But I think you can take this hardcore style and it's died down now. I mean, I have seen, there used to be a guy I think he was in Louisville. His name was Ian Rotten.
Yes.
They used to have, I mean, when they say hardcore stuff, it was hardcore. And I used to make some shows up there for him. And I told him, I said, Ian, I know your deal's hardcore, but I said, don't expect me to do any of your hardcore stuff because I'm not doing it. And here's another show I was booked on one time. I had these two. I may have talked about these 2 guys before. They were going to run a wrestling show because their daddy had some money. One of them did. So they booked me and they booked One Man Gang and somebody else. And did I tell this story?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, do the quick version.
No, he put him, one of the kids, I was going to wrestle him, and it was a hardcore match. I said, now, what did I tell you about what I said? I'm not doing hardcore. He said, yeah, man, but it's advertised. I said, I don't give a shit. What is there? I told you, and you want to book me in it anyway. I'm not doing it. Well, what are we going to do? I said, well, you can do hardcore. I mean, I can do hardcore. But don't you come back with hardcore me because I'll leave. Would you really? I said, well, try me. I went out there and now I know how to work with all that stuff, but I made him do all the hardcore stuff and I didn't do nothing. And he beat me. I just said, hell, let's go. Bend me or do something. Get me out of this misery. But they didn't. But the other one, he booked himself with One Man Gang. George Gray, One Man Gang, is about 6'4", 6'5", and can move. He took that little son of a gun out there, and while the kid wasn't too little, he's about 6 foot, about 210, and gang whipped him from one end of that gymnasium to the other, hit him with chairs, hit him with everything, sticks, anything he could pick up. He just beat the crap out of the guy. Of course, the guy would use it back on gang, but you're not going to hurt gang. They had an old U-Haul trailer sitting in there where they brought the ring in. And I'm watching from the back. The gang threw him up in that U-Haul trailer, and they went out of sight. I couldn't see him, but I could see the trailer moving because gangs beat the crap out of him. And then he drug him out, and he was really laying on this kid. So they have the finish, whatever it was. I can't remember now. And they came to the back, and I was standing there, and gang come in there, and he was upset. But the other guy had come in first, and the guy come in, he saw gang, he come in, he said, "Man, thanks a lot, man, but why did you hit me so hard?" He said, "Well, it was a hardcore match." He said, "Yeah, man, but," and the guy was crying, literally crying. And I told him, I said, "Guys, you got to watch booking some of these guys in hardcore stuff, because especially gang." I said, "You're not going to hurt him." And look at you, you're over there crying. So I got a little chuckle out of that. But anyway, that's the thing about hardcore stuff. I was in Smoky Mountain, and Cornette brought a Japanese guy in. It was supposed to be a hardcore deal.
We've talked about this one before. Oh, awful.
Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
I'm doing commentary, and he cut his arm like right here. I looked at it. I went, "My God!" They were over there close to the desk where me and Bob Caudle were. It was just gaped open. I went, "What the hell?" So it reminded me never to get in a hardcore match with anything like that, and the thing about the arm, when it was gaped open, it didn't bleed. There was a little blood there, and that's it. I went, "What the hell?" So I guess your arms don't bleed, I guess. So anybody wants to be a wrestler out there, if you want to cut your arm, I'm telling you, you won't get a lot of blood. So
yeah, the money's not in cutting the arm. We will. In fact, we're going to stay on with Grandslam in a title switch that actually was meant to happen. NJPW Strong champion Eddie Kingston defeats Claudio Castignoli for the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship. Congratulations to Eddie. I know you're a big fan of Eddie's, so yeah.
I do like Eddie, but I love his interviews. His interviews to me are so authentic, and he don't take any crap. To me, he's the ultimate hard ass. And he can ride that as long as he's able physically to do it. And you're talking about Cesaro. I call him Cesaro. Actually, I talked to him yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, and he's doing well. He lives not too far from me, but since I'm so goddamn lazy, I won't get up and walk out the door half the time. But he's doing well, and I wish he'd have got. I don't know if he do the guest if he's working. I mean, he could do it.
I was going to say Jake Hager did, didn't he?
Yeah,
he's with AEW.
I'm gonna try him.
Yeah, do it.
So fans, listen. I'm gonna try to get Cesaro. So say a little bit of those. See if he'll do it. But the guy speaks 5 languages. You know that?
Yeah. He did. He did like some German speaking stuff for WWE's like German channel on YouTube. Yep. He used to do interviews in German. I thought it was a really cool idea to. I mean, it's meant to be the World Wrestling Entertainment, and I like it when they actually bring people in from around the world and sort of include, other countries in it for some exclusive stuff. I think that's really cool.
Well, I'm glad he got the exposure in WWE. I'm glad he's getting the exposure in AEW. And that guy there is probably pound for pound probably one of the strongest guys in wrestling. You can't tell it by looking at him, but he is. He's very, very strong, and he can go from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock because he doesn't get tired. Great guy. And I used to travel with him. It'd be me and Jack and Cesaro, and I'd be talking to the back while watching Jack try to drive and kill us. Oh my God, Jack! He might be the worst driver in wrestling, except for Tom Pritchard. Tom Pritchard gets you killed. You have to watch. You have to watch. See, because I learned a long time ago on these late night trips, you know, I might ride and drink a beer or two, but I didn't want to drink too much because I had to be the navigator. I had to say, what's this? What's this? So anyway, when you get on these roads, and this is the way it used to be, when you get on these roads and you're traveling from town to town, and a lot of times you leave your house or your apartment and you go to make a shot, you may not get back to 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of those trips were ungodly. So, but you either did it or you didn't, you wasn't in the wrestling business. So, but anyway, Cesaro's doing well. I talked to Jack too. Jack's doing well. So,
you never know. Maybe a Real Americans reunion on Storytime with Dutch Mantell coming up. I'm not. But I was thinking this
because I couldn't do it. I don't think. But since the country is so divided with conservatives and liberals, they hate each other. Literally hate each other. I've never seen the country like this before, the United States. But I think if you would just tone that we the people gimmick down just a little bit, I think you'd get a lot of attention on that.
I think so.
But see, now all the other networks or all the other news organizations, they're following wrestling a lot closer now than they used to because they're looking for content. That's all they're looking for. So if you had a divisive gimmick like We the People in AEW, I think it would take off. It's a tricky subject, but I think I could work it to where we could book it to where it'd be.
You said work it.
Worthwhile.
You said you could work it like that. So what you're thinking that you might, let's say if Claudio JK comes back, they put him in a tag team. You'd do that if it was in Florida, a show in Florida. You'd turn up for one, wouldn't you, and say, "Hey, I'm bringing back the Real Americans."
But I wonder could I do it virtually, so I don't have to leave my house.
It'd be nice if you could do like a giant 50-foot head, like 3D head that appears in the arena and gives instructions.
Let me bring up something I just read the other day, and I've been reading about this. It's a building in Vegas called the Sphere.
Yes, yeah.
18,500 seat arena. But the deal is it's covered on the outside with massive TV screens, and they can show anything they want to show. They've already tried it. They showed the Earth. I'm going to make a trip to Vegas just to see that. Unbelievable. Can you imagine that, though? And it costs, what's it cost? It costs $2.4 billion to build.
You get Smackdown for 8 years for that kind of money on your TV show.
And I was looking at see what they booked already. I got their first act in there. If I think about it, I can remember. But I was looking for a WWE date in there because that'd be the first wrestling show. They'd sell it out. And what a TV extravaganza that would be. Hell, I just shoot on the outside of the building for a while. But that really amazes me that they can build something like that.
Yeah, AEW needs to have a smaller version with just your head, and like I know it's a circle, but also two prongs out for the mustache.
Yeah,
then you give orders virtually.
That would be good.
Yeah. I'm going to move on because
you know what, James? See, if you would take this podcast a little more seriously instead of just kidding around, we might have something here. Oh, I want to bring something else up.
Oh, go on.
We're trying to get 100,000 subscribers, which to me is massive. We're sitting at 94,000 right now. But last week we had like 92. So we are climbing. So fans, help us out here a little bit. If you haven't subscribed, please just subscribe and keep listening. Tell your friends.
Tell your enemies.
Tell your enemies. But they might not do it. If you're an enemy, they may.
Tell your enemies not to subscribe.
Yes, that's reverse psychology. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. I like that. So we're trying to get 100,000 subscribers. What do we get, James? A kicking ass or what?
And a pat on the back. 2 feet apart, aren't they? We get a lovely silver YouTube plaque. You can actually see this now as well. You can see that on the camera now. So I've messed around with some stuff. But yes, we get a lovely silver YouTube plaque award. And by
do you have one?
I've got 2. No, I've got 3. Have I?
What did you get 100,000 subscribers on?
Well, WCW. Forget WCW. WSI, something not wrestling related, and something else. But yeah. So I'd like my 4th. You'd like
WSI. You said not wrestling related, but I thought that's what the W stood for.
No. WSI is wrestling related. I've got something for non-wrestling related, and then I've got a 3rd thing.
I see. But, so you had 100,000 subscribers.
Yes. So
really?
I'd like to add a 4th plaque. That'd be nice.
That would be good.
And do you know what really sucks is that they only give you 1.
Okay, so
I've got to pay $230 for another additional plaque to send to you.
Hey, you could cut it right down the middle.
Well, that's what Bill Alfonso would do. Right down the middle, Daddy. That's what he would do. I want to move on. And speaking of Eddie Kingston and Claudio beforehand, it was title versus title. Now, there's an awful lot of titles hanging about in AEW recently.
I read 17.
No. I know I've figured out where you got the number 17. It's not quite that many. It's the Ring of Honor roster, according to the Ring of Honor website, has 17 people on its roster, which is really, including Chris Jericho, which is really confusing.
And who is one? And one of the Briscoes.
Yeah,
the one that passed away.
Yeah, both
he's
of them.
On it, right?
Yeah, Jay Briscoe's still on the Ring of Honor roster for some reason. Excuse me. Anyway, the actual amount of AEW and Ring of Honor titles, and we're including them both because Ring of Honor titles are constantly on AEW TV. It's not like the NXT titles where they're very occasionally on WWE. Ring of Honor and AEW is almost the exact same company now, and they seem to have the exact same amount of titles, and they're all defended on AEW. Anyway, 13 different championships AEW has, and I'm going to tell you what they are. AEW is World Champion, Women's World Champion, TBS Champion, which is the women's, whatever that is, tier below World. Tag Team Champions, International Champion, which is now Rey Fenix, as we discussed before. TNT Champion, which is the men's 2nd or 3rd tier. And the Trios World Champions. And on Ring of Honor's website, they have a World Champion. They have a Women's Champion. They have a Pure Champion. They have a TV Champion, despite the fact they're not even on TV. They have a World Tag Team Champion. And they also have a Trios Tag Team Championship set of belts as well. 13 for AEW, essentially. What's the ideal amount of belts?
I don't get that. To me, less is more. And I couldn't tell you any one of those belts that they have. Because at this point, too many lessens the importance of the top one. If half your talent roster has a title, I mean, that takes away from your top title. To me, it does. So I don't know what what he thinks about it, but to me, that would make it hard to book.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember who my champions were.
Dave Meltzer can't remember who the champions are. And if Dave Meltzer, who loves AEW and remembers everything, can't tell you who the champions are in AEW and Ring of Honor, then you're really in trouble, I think, as far as that's concerned.
Didn't you have some news about Dave Meltzer?
You said this beforehand. What did I say? Or what did he say? Oh, no, it was about this. That's what I was getting at, is Dave Meltzer, who's, a big AEW booster, as I'm sure everyone knows. Even he can't remember who the champions are. And, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is he on their payroll?
I don't think so. I just think he's got too close of a relationship with Tony Khan to be completely impartial on AEW.
I don't know. But how does he talk about WWE?
A little less favorably in general than AEW or Japan.
Well, a year ago, I would agree with him because WWE was horrible. Nothing made sense. Same guys. It just, nothing was clicking. But, and I'm talking about SmackDown. But in that year, they have turned it around 100%. And now that AEW just looks like they look like a wannabe player now because they can't match up with WWE because WWE at this point tells you stories. AEW just has matches. They don't tell a lot of stories. But when they do tell a story, it's actually pretty entertaining. And to tell a story is actually a lot better than just putting a match out there. See, when I booked Puerto Rico, I would tell a story. I would take it out of the studio, and I'm a night owl anyway, and we would go out on the streets. We would actually interview people on the streets, some of them higher than hell, drunk. And where else are you going to see this? You go out and you have the guys, and Sabio was my top heel. He was one of the owners of the company. And he would go out and talk to these people. It was entertaining. So, and one time in Puerto Rico, I don't want to jump all over the place, we did a 22 rating. Unbelievable, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And that was on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the reason that's...
It's because after that, they would have left the house to get all drunk, and then you had to interview them afterwards.
No, they were already out there. But at 1 o'clock on Saturday, all the stores closed at 6 o'clock. So if some fans had something to do, they either went that morning or they grabbed a couple hours in the afternoon because they have blue laws there. So stores close on Saturday night and they're closed Sunday, especially the liquor stores. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was one hell of a rating. But it was a good TV. I'll send you some old clips from Puerto Rico.
To wrap up the title thing, so we know how much the roster is. Everyone pretty much agrees there's too many people on the AEW roster. How many belts should there be?
In Ring of Honor?
No, in AEW. So, okay, let's say they've got 180 people on the roster. Let's say you cut it down to 100. That might be far for the amount of TV. They've got 100 people on the roster. How many belts should there be, and what belts should they be?
Well, each company needs a champion.
Mm-hmm.
Each company needs a tag team champion. Each company needs a female champion. And I would say they need a female tag team, but usually the girls, they only have in a company, they only have 10 women. So it's hard to have tag teams. But they need to cut that down about at least less than half and make these belts mean something.
So you're not a fan of trios titles then?
I hate trios titles. I don't get it. I really don't.
They had trios titles in WCW, I think, at the time while you were there as well. And I remember thinking, looking back on it, they had about 48 different titles in WCW. The Western States Heritage title they had at one point in the late 80s, Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah. But that title didn't mean nothing. Nothing at all. So I don't remember a lot of excess titles there. I don't. And I don't remember the trio title either. Where did that come from? Mexico?
Yeah, I think it was a Mexican thing. But in WCW, I'm just looking it up on Wikipedia. It reigns. So the first one was in February 17th, 1991. Junkyard Dog, Ricky Morton, and Tommy Rich. How about that for a trio?
That's a good one. That really is.
Right, so we're going to do two more bits of news, then we're going to bring Bobby on. You watched The Rock return on Friday's SmackDown last week, so it's 7 days as this podcast comes out. What did you think of the whole situation?
Well, it solidified my belief that it's going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. So I'm a big football fan, so as I sit down, and it was the last game of the day because they played in Colorado. Colorado's on Mountain Time. So if they started at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, it's 10 o'clock. But I watched Cottage Game Day and I watched the Pat McAfee show. The Rock was on them all. He was basically on network TV all day Saturday. And just to back up my point, every one of the announcers knew who Rock was. I mean, not only by his acting career, but they remembered him from WWE and the People's Elbow, and they kept talking about it. So I'm thinking, what are the odds that they go through all this? I mean, lining him up for all these shows. For what? Just to give him publicity? No. One reason that I think he is committed to WrestleMania 40 is because they have a writer's strike. Mm-hmm. So he has some time on his hands. And this was the first show that WWE and Endeavor have together. And that game with Colorado State in Colorado with Deion Sanders as the coach drew 11 or 12 million people. And there was Rock down on the sidelines. And you can't buy that publicity. I mean, when he came on College Game Day, Deion was there. And Deion got down and gave him, I'm not worthy. So it was very good. And he told the story that he wanted to do WrestleMania 39, but somehow that didn't come off. But I think WrestleMania 40 will be the biggest WrestleMania they've ever had. Because I've seen 5,000, 6,000 matches, but I would like to see Roman Reigns and The Rock for the title, and just see what they do with it, and to see the crowd's reaction, because there's something magical about that matchup.
There's something magical about it now. I think a few years ago it wouldn't have been the same because, WWE were trying to make Roman Reigns the top dog and it wasn't clicking. But now it really is clicking. And now, even though I know Rock is in his very early 50s, 50, 51, or he'll be 51, I think. Now's the right time to do it. Or last year or this year just gone was the right time to do it, but only because of where Roman Reigns is now.
Well, WWE went on a campaign to get Roman Reigns over, and they did, because they used one of my things that I used when I booked: patience and listening to those people. Those are your judges. If you just listen to them, or you see who they like, who they don't like. And Roman, I don't know when the last time they've had a heel like him, if ever. But he's done a great job. And this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Their next big heel is going to be Gunther.
Hmm.
So he's going to and I think we'll see him maybe in WrestleMania main event. But Rock, to me, it's almost, they hadn't announced it yet, but I think it's going to be The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's what I'm predicting.
Now, I want to bring up two things. One thing you mentioned, Deion Sanders. Now, I know that name because apparently Jim Ross has said, maybe in his book or wherever he said it, was the reason that The Rock speaks in the third person, The Rock says, etc., is because he heard Deion Sanders doing that, and he suggested it to The Rock. So I thought that was a nice little sort of tie-in there. The other thing is, I've actually got the quote that The Rock claiming that he was going to wrestle Roman Reigns this April just gone, SoFi Stadium, WrestleMania 39. Quote-unquote, it being locked in. So the quote was, let's not do something good, let's not do something great, let's do something unprecedented. And it was in, what can we create for the fans that has never been done before? We can have a match, but the bigger thought was, what can we do for the fans in this business that we love, where WrestleMania isn't the end of something, it's actually the beginning of something bigger. So we got really, really close, but we couldn't actually nail what that thing was. So we decided to put our pencils down, and then we agreed, hey, listen, there's a merger coming up, as you mentioned. And eventually that will happen. There's WrestleMania in Philadelphia, ... So it's funny that you mentioned the merger as well, because The Rock turning up on SmackDown, getting one more big
on
rating.
the first week.
Exactly.
That Endeavor moves into their spot.
And SmackDown's just leaving Fox because USA's just bought it for nearly $300 million a year. It was perfect timing. The one thing I wanted to ask you before we move on to our last bit of news before we get Bobby on is, should the WWE have advertised The Rock's appearance on SmackDown? Because they didn't. It was a total surprise.
I don't think so.
No?
Because he started trending. See, WWE is noted. Now, if they had have advertised, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But for the first, now when they advertise him, they know they already got him. So it will pay dividends later on.
Now, there's so much we need to talk about. We'll have to do sort of a condensed version. I'm sorry, Bobby, I know you can't hear me, but you just have to wait 10 minutes. DDT's Bullet Train match in Japan. Did you watch the videos? 3 minutes of the highlights.
I did watch it.
Your opinion?
What's the purpose of it, really? They got on the Bullet Train. I wonder what kind of permit they had to get that. And who were these passengers?
I believe there were audience members who paid like big money to actually be in the carriage.
I'm sure they're wrestling fans, because you're not going to take regular people and put them in a car like that, the big train, and that they not knowing what's going on. They were fans. It was different, is all I can say, but I wasn't blown away by it, but it was different.
It went 40 minutes, apparently.
What was it, 40 minutes to do that?
Yeah, the match was 40 minutes long on that carriage, yeah.
I don't get it. So they cut it down to a 3-minute highlight reel.
Basically, yeah.
Where can people see this?
I found it on YouTube. I think it's Minoru Suzuki. I didn't even write down who was in it. DDT, DDT's the promotion, famous for, Kenny Omega wrestling a little girl and stuff like that. They put on all sorts of weird stuff, DDT. With the actual match quality itself, what I watched was, it almost seemed like one giant parody skit of wrestling rather than like an intense matchup, because like one of them slapped another one and the other one went, "Oh!" and they were really overacting.
Well, the only thing, they couldn't do anything. They're walking up and down an aisle on a train carriage. They probably had 40 people on there. Can't do much. Maybe had a little more. I don't know. But I've been on the Bullet.
Have you really?
Oh yeah, years and years ago, and it wasn't really that old when I was on it. So I went to Japan, and on that Japan trip, I flew over. So I was on a plane, I took a boat to another island. So I had the boat. Then I got on the bullet, and there was something else I did. Oh, I took a bus. I don't know. That's between them beating the shit out of me because I went over with this shoot group.
Yeah.
Oh, they beat the hell out of me. And I didn't know it was a semi-shoot group. I just thought they couldn't work.
We're going to watch that. We're going to watch that match in a later episode. We're going to see that wheel kick that...
oh, you knocked me out?
Akira Maeda, I think, is
the
God.
Wacky
one.
He racked me.
Very quickly, what's the weirdest place you've ever seen a wrestling match take place? You've done it in prisons, you've done it in orchestras, you've wrestled weird places. I've got to guess what I think you're going to say, though.
I'm going to say, and I don't even know the name for this, it's the Monster Truck Show. I wrestled there one time. So I went out there between the races or the jumps or whatever they do. And they said this. I says, how long you want me to go? They said, go till we tell you to get out. Okay. So I go out there. It was me and Robert Fuller. Ding, 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 ding. We circled around one time and didn't even lock up. Ding, 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 ding. And I got out, and it was the only match I've ever had, excuse me, that I never touched my opponent. They said, go from the bell to bell. I said, okay. The match lasted about 45 seconds. And somebody said, is that it? I said, that's it, folks. You know, like, that's it, folks. Do, 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 like the cartoons. And I left. So...
I know you probably don't know the Simpsons.
Oh,
reference.
I did wrestle on the back of an 18-wheeler flatbed truck going around a racetrack.
That was with Boo, wasn't it? Boo Bradley? Was it
No,
Paul Mahoney or someone else?
No, Tony Anthony, Dirty White Boy. That's what I did. And I've had some more too. I just can't really remember. I wrestled in a service. We call them service stations in the U.S. It's a gas place. You pull up to get gas. And they had like a little where you could change the oil. They put it in there over the oil pit. And they put about 30 people in there, and we wrestled there. And the prison was weird.
So
you
did oil wrestling, essentially, is what you're trying to tell me.
Well,
could have done.
Well, we could have, but we didn't. And I've wrestled. I'm trying to think where. I don't know. I wrestled on a barge in Miami, Florida. They had some deal going on. We couldn't get the building, so they went down to a barge area and they rented a barge. I think it was a tax deal. If they got on a barge, they didn't have to pay taxes to the city. And all the people went onto the barge and we wrestled. I think I wrestled Steve Kern on the barge. And I think he threw me off into the water. And that's it. That was really, really a weird experience. So, and I will have more. That's just off the top of my head.
I hate to say this, we've got two more bits of news we need to briefly mention because we can't mention it any other time. Although last week we forgot to mention it as well when it actually was news. Nia Jax has returned to WWE Raw. Easy for me to say.
No, go ahead.
Did you see... Did I send you the video where she makes her appearance and then murders Rhea Ripley? So you watched the video. Tell me what happened.
Well, she came in. I think it had two girls there, and they're trying to, I'm sure, get something with Rhea and Rhea and Nia. That's pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Rhea and Nia, but I think Nia, she had so much talk about her hurting people, and she did that sit down on Rhea. Now she can do it on Rhea. Rhea's a pretty big girl. But some of those other girls, I think she'd crush them. because I don't think she moves pretty well, but I don't know if she can control that weight. But but see, a woman like Nia Jax, she's the type of woman that I never would go out with. Because any woman that could beat the shit out of me, I kind of shy away from asking them out. Because if she didn't like something I did, she just beat the crap out of me. And I don't much enjoy that stuff anyway. But I think they do have some money with Rhea and Nia. And let's get the creative team on that and see what they can come up with. It is pretty interesting. But I did like the way she debuted. She just showed up. Also in the first week of Endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and do you know what she didn't do at the very least was do the, CJ Perry, Lana, where the music hit, she came down the entrance ramp and then she posed. And then she came to the ring. So at least she just showed up and did something.
I never understood that anyway. If you're going to make a surprise appearance and all of a sudden you go out there, everybody in the building knows you're coming in or the person is coming in. How is that a surprise? And that's just a way for them to go out there and, I call them milking the crowd for adoration, applause. They're going to get the same bit. They just won't get it up front. I don't get that. That's like all these guys doing these unnecessary moves before they do a move. I saw a guy the other day, I don't know, I'm sure it was on AEW because WWE, if he tried this, they'd tell him not to do it. He did a front roll and then hit the guy with a clothesline. Mm-hmm. What does the front row add to that move? Nothing. It actually slows it down. So if you really think about it, which is what I think sometimes wrestling does, they don't want the fans to think too much. They want to do all the thinking for them, and it doesn't make any sense. Because contrary to popular belief, fans have a brain. They can think. And of course, they can say, that was stupid. This is stupid, which is their right because they're buying a ticket to see it. But some things, I agree with them, it is stupid. So, but your agents should tell you, don't do that. And apparently in AEW, they tell them not to do it. And the people pays no attention to agents. They just go ahead and do what they want to do. So
our last thing we're going to mention before we bring Bobby on, I've just messaged him as well to let him know that we'll be with him in a few minutes. We're running a few minutes late. Kurt Angle was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about various things, but the biggest news to really come out of that is just how injured Kurt currently is and how badly how hurt he's been working for nearly 30 years now. So the quote is, "I always had problems with my motor skills in my hands. I broke my neck 4 more times in the WWE." This is after he broke his neck initially in the while doing the Olympics in '96. "And it got worse and worse. I mean, I have nerve damage in my neck. I lost 3 inches in both arms and they atrophied because my neck was just so messed up. I've had 5 surgeries and none of them have really worked. I'm going to end up having to have fusion, which will be down the line. I have nerves that are being pinched and they're not being able to flow down my arms, so my fingers are freezing cold. They're always cold. I don't have any circulation. This is all the extra skin because of what the size of my arms used to be. I'm barely making it right now. My arms are 15 inches now. They used to be 18 or 19 inches. I'm struggling right now." Also in the video, he talks about attempting to do stem cell research, and his neck is so messed up, even the stem cell research hasn't helped. So, just the complete physical mess that Kurt Angle is in these days.
Well, he was a great worker. He was a great amateur. He was a great interview, turned in some great matches, but I hate to hear that he's in the shape that he's in because he never took a night off. I mean, Kurt would go out there and he would give you 110% every night. And I've seen him take some spills, some bumps that were like ungodly. So, but I do remember being around Kurt, and he will admit this, that he got addicted to opioids. And he told me one day that before he got up in the morning, he took like 10 Percocets or 10 Vicodins or something. I'm thinking 10. I mean, if I took 10, it's over for me. I couldn't do it. But he built up a resistance to it. And that's what he had to have to just move through the day. So I feel for him, and I hope he's okay. But if he's in that condition now, how old is Kurt?
Early 50s, I think, something like that.
Well, hey, I'm not in too good shape myself, but at least I can move around a little bit, and the pain is not all that bad.
Yeah, 54.
But we're all in pain, all in pain, because you can't take that stuff for years. You can't take these bumps for years and years and years and not damage something in your body. So even a guy that's only stayed in for 5 years, I'm sure he'd tell you that he has his knee hurts, his hip hurts, his lower back hurts, his shoulder, neck. And these are really your critical joints that you have to live a normal life. But I hope he's okay. And I love Kurt. Great guy. And I hope he's okay.
He's 54 now. I'm going to ask this one last question, then we're going to get Bobby on. Someone advanced this recently. I don't know where it was. I read it. And maybe they're right. Is that Kurt Angle actually had his best run in TNA and not WWE, including having his best matches. What do you think?
Well, I didn't follow him in WWE, really. He was... And when TNA got him, and I don't think I'm talking out of school when I say this, but Kurt Angle left WWE without a 90-day no-compete clause. They waived it. Mm-hmm. You know what that told me? It told me that he was in such a condition that they were afraid that he would die on their watch. He told me that. So they wanted just to get him away. They wanted him gone. So he finished up on New Year's night at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And we went with that show at 12 o'clock Eastern time. He'd only been released from WWE for like from 1 year to the next. It didn't roll over to the next year. And that year, rolling into the next one, I forgot what year this was, and he was on the show. So they waived the whole 90-day compete clause. So, and there was a lot of theories about it, but that was my theory. I think they didn't care. They just wanted him gone because he was in such bad shape at that time.
Well, TNA must have known this, surely. I mean, that really can't. That does not paint them in a good light whatsoever.
No, they knew this exactly. They wanted a name that they could get that would get people talking,
even if he might die on their watch. I find that crazy. Like trying to compete with WWE, basically pick up somebody who WWE has gotten rid of because they can't help him anymore as far as his drug addiction goes. And then I don't even know how much TNA tried to help him with the drug addiction, but he had issues in TNA for years as well. This is all public. We're not telling tales out of school, and Kurt's talked about it as well. But the fact that TNA and Dixie picked Kurt Angle up when he was deep in the sickness of addiction is, I'm going to say this, almost a desperation move. And Kurt was great in TNA and stuff, absolutely, but still, I mean, that's an issue.
But I will say one thing for Kurt. He performed. He performed when he was there. And in 2007, 2008, when he was there, Booker T was there, Scott Steiner, and the Knockouts, AJ Styles, that was their best years. Mm. And sometimes it was TNA to me was one of the most non-functioning companies I've ever been around. But somehow we made it go, and we found a method to the madness, and we made it work for a while anyway. And I think the Knockouts really was the big cause, a big cause for that.
Yeah, they had 141 and a third % chance of failure, and yet they're still here in 2023.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, having said that, we've done enough of the news, and I think it's time to bring on Bobby. So bear with us 1 second, and we'll be back.
Well, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm glad you tuned in for Storytime with Dutch. Occasionally we have guests on here, and I think James has left it up to me to book the guests. And I hate booking guests because I tried to book Jamie Dundee like 3 weeks ago. He's still not here. So my track record with guests is not very good. But Bobby Fulton has joined us today from the great team of the Fantastics. So, Bobby, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dutch. Now, I'm not going to start talking until I get that PayPal
money. Okay.
That's why Jamie never showed up. You told him the check was in the mail.
Yeah.
And he's still waiting on it. You know, it's a long way from Florida to Kentucky.
No kidding.
Let me wait for this PayPal money to come through. You promised me X amount of dollars. I'm not going to say what it is publicly. And I'm going to wait until I get that ding, and then I'll talk. Until then, it's total silence.
Bobby, what year did I meet you?
It was actually, I met you in about '79 when we were working for Nick Gulas.
Oh my God!
Ken Lucas was there, and a bunch of guys. Me and Eric Henry was there we could only starve to death so long there. We wasn't there that long. So me and Eric Henry were the Fulton brothers wrestling there, and you were working on top.
Hey, I went on my my X that used to be Twitter.
Right.
I went on the other day, and I want you to verify what I said about a guy, about George Gulas. He's possibly the worst professional wrestler of all time. Would you back that up?
Yes, I would. But Dutch, that was a professional wrestler. But nowadays, in the world of independents and outlaws, George might be considered a Harley Race today.
So you've seen some bad matches?
I've seen some really bad matches lately. So bad that I tried to poke my eyes out with a turnbuckle post. It was so bad and horrible. As a matter of fact, it was so bad that the promoter told me, he said, I got a great idea. I'm going to let the people in free. I'm going to charge them to get out.
That's my joke.
I know it is.
You stole it.
I did. Hey, what do they call that? Plagiarism?
That is plagiarism.
I want everybody to know that I'm not drunk. It's early in the morning. I just speak like this now. I don't have the voice that I had at one time. As you can see, the cancer, radiation scars and stuff. And my tongue now is only this long.
Yeah.
But I still got one.
But how are you feeling now?
I feel good. I feel good. I have some days of repercussions. I don't know if it's from the radiation and the chemotherapy. They recently told me, said, we gave you the legal limit of radiation. If cancer comes back, you can never get radiation again. You have all that your body can that we can give you legally.
Take.
So
Wow.
I'm doing good though, Judge. Actually, I'm glad to be here.
Where do you live?
Chillicothe, Ohio, the first capital of Ohio. My hometown, as a matter of fact.
And you had a show, or you had 2 shows or 3 shows? Yeah. You run that town, right?
Yes. You came up for me years ago. The circle.
Oh, years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
I did.
And wrestled. And but we're running Chillicothe, my actual hometown. That was Circleville. We have another one coming up September 30th, Saturday, September 30th. For anybody that loves wrestling, it's an ideal show. We have probably.
How can you get tickets to that show?
If they can go on the World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling, that's a lot to say, but WCP, P as in Paul, B as in Big Time Wrestling.com. They'll tell them exactly how to buy tickets for it. My son Dylan is really the ringleader. I'm just kind of in the corner going, okay, son, we might need to do this, we might need to do that. You know, Dutch, you promoted shows. You know,
I have, but the thing I found out about promoting shows is you got to kind of work at it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't say, you know, I just like to lean back and just let people walk in and give me some money and we'll get it over with.
I put out 1,200 window cards for this show. Wow. Mm-hmm. I remember years ago, Jared told me, said, what made Nick Gulas a great promoter? He was a street walking promoter, meaning he walked the streets. Imagine back then when they had newspaper, video, TV, and posters. Window cards, we know in wrestling, was a big thing. And I remember going into some Kentucky towns where JoJo would even put posters out. They would staple them to the telephone poles. I don't know if you remember seeing that or not, but yeah.
What's his name?
JoJo Yamamoto.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Remember JoJo?
I bullwhipped his ass a couple of times.
I know. Hey, as a matter of fact, he gave me a rice cooker back in 1983. I still cook rice in it today. I'll never forget him. And you told me before he taught you about washing rice and this and that. And he later did the same thing for me.
Yep.
And he was really nice. I mean, you know, a lot of people say a lot of things about JoJo. What a tremendous heel. What a tremendous talent. A lot of guys, some guys didn't like him, but I always liked JoJo. He was always nice to me. You know how the business is. We have to treat people as they treat us, not as we've heard that they've done with other people, but how do they treat me? You know, and I'm sure you're the same way.
Let me ask you about, and we got a tape we're going to show in just a few minutes.
All right.
Of you and Tommy, your partner, Tommy Rogers, against the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, and Cornette from Houston.
Right.
And I don't know where I got it, but I sent it to James.
Right.
But Houston was such a great town to work in front of.
Yes, it was.
I mean, and it drew well. What was the name of that building we worked in?
Sam Houston Coliseum.
Sam Houston. I couldn't remember, but those people were loud.
Yes.
And they told you if they liked something or not. And the one thing about Paul Bosch, and Paul Bosch was the local promoter there for years. He probably was the best payoff man in the business.
That's what they say. You know,
if you were working Texas and you had Houston on your booking sheet, you automatically knew you were going to have a good week.
It makes you a week. That's what a lot of people say. It's like Jimmy Bangor told me one time. He said, you can't count the weeks. You have to count the year or the month. And like you said, one day could make a difference in a good week or not, you know, except if you were in Kansas City.
But I got tired of going to Houston and getting those $2,500, $3,000 payoffs every week. You know? Screw this.
Yeah.
I said, hell, I want to make some money. I don't want to.
I know.
But I did see not too long ago the Houston payoff sheet. I don't know where it came from. But guys that come in there like Johnny Valentine and Brody, they were picking up $3,000 every Friday. Yeah. Not every week. He didn't run every week. He ran every 2 weeks.
Right.
But, you know, if you could go back and know, this was like 40 years ago. You pick up $3,000 to go in the ring for 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Oh,
That's
it
like
is.
10,000. That's like $10,000 a day, probably, if not more. I mean,
I'd say
$10,000
I said be 12. Yeah.
probably.
It's,
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you a question about what territory did you break in
I,
when
I
you started wrestling?
actually broke in. I broke in here in Ohio. A guy in my first match was in '77. I started setting rings up for some guys when I was about 13 years old. There was a NWA promoter that was one of the founding fathers, Al Haft, that was in Ohio
Al
for years.
Haft.
And
And
he
who was Al Haft? I
he
never
was
met
a
him.
he was a guy who was a wrestler turned promoter. But what I was getting ready to tell you was I didn't break in through him, but he had another guy that was like an under promoter who was from my hometown, Hank Best, who ran
Mm-hmm.
shows. And that's how I started setting the ring up, back then. And I tell people this all the time. If you go to an independent show today, you'll see the people that set the ring up in the dressing room, half the fans in the dressing room. But even back then, when I set the ring up, they would never talk out of school. They would never let us in the dressing room. They were a whole different breed of animal back then in what they called the kayfabe era. I mean, they
So
never.
what do you think about today that everybody knows it's not legit? Does
Right.
that bother you?
No, it doesn't. But what bothers me is the idea that we keep forcing it down their throat. It's like Santa Claus, Dutch. I know Santa Claus. Well, I hate to break a lot of kids. Santa Claus is not real. The spirit of him is.
What? You're just
I'm
breaking
sorry.
this to me. He's
Okay,
not
listen.
real.
But here's the deal. If I go to a shopping center, although I know he's not real, if I see a guy sitting there in a pair of blue jeans, about 160 pounds, with a goatee, and I said, "Well, who's that?" And they say Santa Claus. I don't buy it. I want this whole suit. I want the white beard and the suit. And I'm saying all that to say this: when I go to a wrestling show, and I think fans for the most part want their beliefs suspended, and we know this before with us, that if they thought something was real, they would bite into it and believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Although in the back of their minds they said, I don't know about this wrestling. But if they believed one match, like Johnny Valentine said, I can't make them believe in this business, but I can make them believe in me. And
Yeah,
we
Valentine did make people believe in him.
right. I seen him later on in Texas, not to get away from the story, and he was in a wheelchair then, right? And he came to one of Joe Banks's shows, and he said, I was always accused of hitting people hard in the ring. He said, it wasn't that I hit them hard. He said, they had these milky white bodies. And he said, when I would hit them, the blood would just pour out of their sweat pores. And it wasn't my doing.
Bobby, when you started, and I think a lot of people may not realize this, how many territories were in existence?
Oh, all of them. I don't know. However, they were all over the country. NWA was the ruling party. They had the WWF up in the Northeast, and they had Vern in Minnesota and that. But the National Wrestling Alliance was from coast to coast, from border to border, and I mean it was just wide open with crews of probably at least 20 guys in every territory, right? At least.
Oh yeah,
At
they was
least.
probably they were probably at least 600-700 guys that made their living from
Right.
wrestling full
Right,
time.
right. And,
So,
and
I think now you got WWE
you
and you
right,
got AEW as
right,
national promotions. But years ago, they had these smaller promotions. Florida had a company.
right,
Georgia had a company.
right.
North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia had a company. Tennessee had 3 one time.
Yes.
Alabama
yes.
had 2.
Right,
Texas had 2.
right,
Then you had, of course, the WWF. Boston
right,
was a company one time. Yeah, I
right,
think you had something like 34
right,
wrestling promotions you could go to work for.
Right. Detroit was another one. Detroit was another one. Indianapolis was another one.
And
Kansas City.
Kansas
Portland,
City. You ever go to Kansas City?
Los Angeles, San Francisco.
You ever go to Kansas City?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh my God.
Hey, one night, let me tell you that's what happened. We were going to the pizza in a snowstorm, right? And I had to pee, so I got out of the car near a toll booth. And I was peeing, I looked down in the snow and there was a $20 bill. And I said, hey guys, a $20 bill. $20 bill. I looked down, there was a $20 bill. I picked it up, I showed the guys in the car because I had 3 guys with me. And I said, I found $20. They said, no, you didn't. So I looked down, there was another 20. And another 20. I picked them up and showed them. They all dove out of the car and was in the snow digging for that money. Trying to get that money because you know how Kansas City was you would start at that. Dewey Robertson, the missing link, told me, he said, I started the death in Kansas City to learn to work. Then I started painting my face green and never used another wrestling hold after that, you know.
Oh yeah. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
So you really found $20 bill?
Yeah, I did. I found about $60 or $80 in the snow.
Wow.
And all the boys jumped out. I mean, the snow was probably a foot deep, and they all was digging out there trying to find that money if there was other money there.
So they all bailed out of the car and went diving in the snow.
Yeah, digging for 20s. Yeah. Yeah.
That would have been a hell of a rib too.
Yeah, that would have been. I never thought about that.
Get out of here. There's some money laying around. What's the worst territory? Listen, what's the worst territory you ever went to?
Kansas City.
Oh, man, it was pretty rough. I went out there. I think I lasted out there about 4 months. I said, I can't do it no more.
Dutch.
It's cold.
You're the man of steel.
Oh,
you're the man of steel. 4 months. And you know, that's like Nick Willis' territory. I'll never forget working for Nick, you know, and he took care of some guys he didn't take care of. But I remember later working for Jerry Jarrett, and a fan came up and said, I like it when Nick promoted better than Jerry Jarrett. I said, why? He said, there was a constant turnover of wrestlers. I said, yeah.
No kidding.
They would leave, and they'd be in there a month or two and leave. Because, you know, it was hard. Nick's territory was hard.
I thought about one time franchising the Nick Goulas territory as a weight loss program.
Yeah, that would have been good.
I guarantee you come here, you stay with me 4 weeks, and I guarantee you'll lose 40 pounds in a month.
I you know, the old story is the guys would drive in the Lincoln, drive out on the $400,000 Bluebird bus.
No kidding. And it was crazy.
Another thing I was getting ready to tell you was that remember Tommy Sloan, the referee?
Oh yeah.
He would tell us. He would come up to me and say, "Well, Bobby, Nick told me that I don't have to pay trans, so I'm gonna ride with you. You know how we all charge trans, but it was his way of getting out of paying trans and stuff. You know, trans was 4 cents a mile. Remember that?
Yeah, trans for the people that don't know. It's like if you go on a trip, you pay a guy a transportation fee. Like here's for the gas, and we had a way to gauge that. But you say this referee would get in there and. He told you that Nick Goulas, the promoter, told him that whoever he rides with, he don't have to pay trans.
He don't have to pay no trans.
Oh yeah, well.
Yeah, you know how it is. But he was snowing the snow people, you know. Mm-hmm. It was just his way of getting out of paying. And probably when we would get tired of it, he would move on to another guy, you know.
Let's talk about your partner a minute, Tommy Rogers.
The late Tommy Rogers, yes.
He passed away when? 2 years ago?
No, it's been about 7 years ago.
Oh, that long?
Yes, sir.
Damn.
Yes, sir. And you know, a lot of people said that he killed himself, but that's not true. He died the same way Mama Cass died, Jimi Hendrix died, regurgitation. What's the word for that? Christy, what's the official word for that?
Aspiration.
Yeah.
Aspiration. Aspiration. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, so he choked to death?
Yes, on the Little Debbie cake.
Dang.
On the Little Debbie cake.
And he was in Hawaii, wasn't he?
Yes, living in Hawaii. Yes, sir.
What was he doing out there?
It was a place he liked, and he had friends out there, and he ended up moving from Memphis to Hawaii, and he was out there for quite a while, just living.
And he was still in good shape.
Well, on the outside, yes. But from his ankles to his shoulders to his neck was destroyed from the wrestling business and other things.
We were just talking about Kurt Angle,
yes,
and how messed up his body is.
Right.
Said his arms used to be 18 inches, now they're 15 inches.
Right.
And his neck has been broken 4 times, and he's got nerves in his back. So he's in tough shape too. So anybody, I'm talking to the fans out there, guys. If you're trying to get into this business, just know that you can make big money, but it takes its toll on your body.
But and plus, Dutch, the window is not that wide on who gets through to make the big money. I know guys that's been out in these independent shows. Probably they make $35 a night. It's been out there 25, 30 years.
And some of them are overpaid.
Well, I know that. And some of them don't get paid and don't care. But the thing of it is, it does take them, and that's why guys hate the word fake so bad. I think fake's not the word. Predetermined, yes. But nothing fake about getting thrown around the ring. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Remember, we used to go over the top rope out into the concrete floor. There was no pads out there. I'll never forget.
What was your best territory that you ever worked in? You made the most money, or?
And I like the best. I made money.
The best.
I'll be honest with you. I love Gary Garrett's territory. I love that Memphis territory.
Yeah.
I made my most money with Jim Crockett and Bill Watts.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, Joe Blanchard, I worked in San Antonio, and I'll never forget when I drove from Memphis. I've been working underneath in Memphis, and Luke Williams and Bill Dundee had me go to San Antonio. I drove all the way down to San Antonio. I walked into the office. Joe Blanchard was real sweaty. He'd been working out there in a little gym he had. He looked at me and said, when a promoter sees somebody, he's a wrestler, he either sees little money, no money, or big money. And that's all he said to me. That night, I had my first match in this territory. The first match on the show, he gave me $400.
In San Antonio.
And I said, that was yes. And that's San Antonio territory. And I said, well, he must believe a little bit in me, for a one night $400 payoff there. But he was a good payoff man too, and a good man. You worked for Joe, right?
Yeah, I did.
I liked him. He was a good guy.
Good guy.
Yeah.
So you like the old Mid-South territory, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana?
It was a hard-working territory, but I liked it.
Were the miles long there?
They were very long. One night, I remember we had worked the loop, and it was the last night of the loop, and we had to drive 750 miles back to Alexandria. That was how far at the end.
Where were you, Canada?
We were in Western Texas. Bill had worked us around, driving, and finally we were in West Texas, and it was 750 miles back that night, and we drove it. Straight through.
Well, I never went 750 miles. If I'd had to do that, hell, I just turned the other way. I said, hell, I can't do this shit.
But
I did do 550 miles, and I would do that every other week. That Tulsa, Oklahoma. They ran a double show. They would run a double show on Sunday. It was Oklahoma City in the afternoon.
Right.
On a Sunday. Then you leave there, you go to Tulsa.
Yes.
You do that show. Then that's that long trip back to Louisiana.
Right. And sometimes we would have to stay the night and do promos. Do you remember that? When Bill
in
started
Oklahoma? Maybe. That's where
you know what?
That's where Bill lived.
Yeah, that was we could go to his house and do promos and stuff. But before that, we would do the promos in Shreveport. Remember, Wednesday was promo day. I believe it was Shreveport as a TV station.
This is what I remember about Mid-South. We would go to TV in Shreveport.
Right.
And before the matches or the tapings began, Bill was a born-again Christian.
Right.
And you remember this. He called all the boys together, all the wrestlers together in a room, and they said a group prayer.
Right.
You know, sometimes Jake the Snake would say something.
Right.
And I'm thinking, Jake the Snake. I mean,
right.
Jake is in on the, and then DiBiase, he was a
JYD.
Jake would say something, then Teddy.
Right.
And I remember they were praying one out, oh, Jesus, Lord, please protect us on the road and all this. And I caught myself praying that some people would come to the matches so we could get some money.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It was crazy.
You know that ring that was in that building? That wrestling ring? I have that ring. I own that ring.
That's the McNeely's Boys Club.
Yeah, Irish McNeil. I got that ring. I got it in North Carolina, as a matter of fact. But yeah, that TV was a lot of pressure he put on you, didn't he? I like Bill. He pushed you, and I liked him because he really made you go the extra step. You know.
Well, you worked with the Midnight Express down there,
yes,
correct?
Sir. Yes, sir. Midnight. Hey, I worked with. Do you remember we did an angle with you and Bill Dundee?
Yep, I remember it.
And
I still got one of those matches somewhere.
Right. I loved them. We worked hard. We had good matches. I'll never forget one night. You guys were beating me at the Bullwhip somewhere, and it was hurting. So let me tell you something. It's real. It's real. And I got over there and laid by Carl Ferguson, who was knocked down as a referee, so nobody hit me. Yeah. All of a sudden, I seen Carl open up his eye real wide and look behind me. And about that time, you gave Dundee that bullwhip. Well, he turned around like a flapjack and hit me with the handle in the back of the head as hard as he could. I went, man, that was wild. That was some wild stuff. We had some great matches, though, you know.
Oh, yeah, it was good. But Bill, he was and Jim Ross was the announcer back in those days.
Right. Yes, sir.
And it was a well-watched TV. They did some good business there.
People believed it. He ran it as
I did too after I got through. I did too after I got through working with you a couple of times. I said, "Hell, this guy's beating the shit out of me. I got to protect myself better."
Well, let me tell you what Ivan Koloff told the guy. Me and Ivan was working at some shows, right? Ivan, I accidentally hit him in the back of the head with a chair and split his head open. But then I punched him in the nose, and he came to the show. He came to the show with a great big white patch on the back of his head. And on his nose, he had a great big white thing over his nose while he was in the ring. He looked like a duck. And he told the guy he was working with, he said, I don't know if you realize this or not, but we're wrestling guys that don't realize this is a word.
But he was a good guy. Hey, James, can you put that match up with Bobby and Tommy versus the Midnight Express in Houston? Yep. It's only about, how long is that? About 3-4 minutes?
No, it's 2 minutes 20. It's just the highlights. So give me 1 minute. I'll put it up. Okay, we're back. We're going to see the video now. I think I've muted the audio. If you want me to pause or rewind, just let me know.
Okay, Bobby, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it real well. That's me, hip toss, and Bobby, beautiful Bobby. Dennis Chandri,
Here's a fantastic. Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, did a double takeover. It's Tommy Rogers and I, the Fantastics, against the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette at ringside.
Hey, I just want to pause this. I just want to pause this and ask, when did you start doing the Fargo struts, and did you get like permission to do it from Jackie?
No, we stole all this shit.
I'll tell you what happened, and this is exactly what happened. The Fabulous Ones was made in Memphis, Tennessee, right?
Yep.
So what happened was, for a short time, Jerry Jarrett sent a crew down to Atlanta. It was me and Terry Taylor were the first Fantastic Ones. They gave us the suits the Fabulous Ones had for their videos. Everything was whatever the Fabulous Ones did. So when that territory shut down, Terry Taylor and I came back. But what happened was, Bill Watts and Bill Dundee put us together as the Fantastics in Mid-South. And we were raised with all the stuff before what we done. So it was weird. But what's weird is Jackie Fargo lived in my hometown. In my town, I lived in North Carolina. And I had to look after him up until his death. As a matter of fact, I spoke at his funeral. But my son Dylan was the very last one he got up and taught the Fargo strut to in his living room. And that's Dylan's claim to fame. But Fargo loved us. What do they say about when you copy somebody, it's the most sincere form of flattery, right?
Yep. That's what they say.
And I mean, it's James. Now keep in mind this: that during these days there was all kinds of territories across the country before national television. So what bookers and people would do, and wrestlers, they would see something in one territory that worked, they might go and try in another. It's like Bobby Shane, for example. He was the real king. And I mean, Jerry Lawler is a copycat of Bobby Shane. And so on and so forth. So it wasn't that we were copycats, it's what the office told us to do. And that was our job, so we did it. So, yes, on the Fargo strut. I could do the Fargo strut better than Stan and Steve. They needed a lot of work on theirs. Tommy
did too.
Tommy did too. I mean,
you and Dundee did it the best.
Yeah, thanks.
Where does Jeff Jarrett's rank?
Way down there at the bottom of the pit. As a matter of fact, Jackie Fargo turns over in his grave every time Jeff Jarrett does it. That's how bad it is. And as a matter of fact, it's not the Fargo strut he does. It's the Double J strut. I don't know what he does.
Let's watch a bit more of the video. I think Jim Cornette has just passed out.
He's had a heart attack.
Now, this is a Houston crowd. They were tremendous.
Guys, notice them turnbuckles in the corner. Look at that wood on that ring.
Hey, that Dennis Condrey was a good worker, wasn't he?
One of the best. As a matter of fact, sometimes I would have to look in the shadows of the mat to know if Dennis touched me or not. That's how good he was.
Yep.
He was so smooth and great talent, yes.
And if you got a little stiff or a little bit too hard with Dennis, he'd tell you, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Right. Yeah, he was very smooth in the ring. He looked like he was killing it. But I guarantee you, not one potato was thrown. Not one time was he stiff.
Now, Tommy did a hell of a job here.
Tommy's a great talent. Tommy
Rogers, he was
really good.
You and him made a great team.
Thanks. We complimented each other, you know.
That'll cost you $10.
That's right. Thank you. I'll send that PayPal. As soon as you send me the money to do this interview,
okay.
I'll send it back to you.
All right. That's Ronnie West.
Yeah, great referee.
Yep. This was a good finish too.
Yeah, you never see that. Something
That was
different, right?
That was like a go-to finish right there.
Right, right.
And the people, they're happy, they're up, and babyfaces go over and look at Cornette.
Yeah.
You know, Cornette could get heat in a 7-Eleven.
Yes, he could.
Now, he could just walk in there, and it was too much.
Right, right. Well, when the boys hate you in the dressing room, you know you're doing your job right. You know, if you're a heel. When everybody else hates you, you know. But Jimmy was a great talent. I don't know if I ever told you this, Dutch, or not, but I would ride with his mom and him from Louisville to Evansville. And I'd ride with his mother.
What was her name?
I told Thelma. She worked for Miss Christine selling pictures. And I would tell Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, you're never going to be a wrestler in this business, but one day you're going to be a manager, you're going to be a booker, you're going to be something in this business, but you'll not ever be a wrestler. And he's trusted me 100 times for predicting his career before he even did it. But, you know, he loved the business.
Yeah.
He studied it. He loved it. You know.
He did study it.
Yeah.
He does love it.
Yes.
And he was a pretty good booker.
Oh, he's really smart. You know, he has a way of acting way out of hand sometimes. You know, I've heard he's taken baseball bats to people's jars, and he's done everything but set people on fire, I guess. But, you know, he's very passionate about what he does.
I had a match with him in the midnight, I guess, one time, and he was going to use the tennis racket on me.
Mm-hmm.
He hit me, I swear to God, so hard in the back.
Right.
It was still like stinging 10 minutes later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I said, do I owe you money or something? He said, no, why? I said, I thought you was going to drive that tennis racket through me.
Right.
But anyway, Bobby, I got to ask you this.
Yes, sir.
I've told James about it, and he asked me before you came on some of the craziest places I worked. And I worked in 2 prisons.
Right.
And you and Tommy worked against me and Bill Dundee,
right,
in some prison in Kentucky.
LaGrange.
That was
LaGrange.
LaGrange, which is a maximum security prison.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I never will forget that. So I go out there first. Nobody. They lead us into where we're going to have the matches. Nobody's in there. Then all of a sudden, I guess a bell rings. It fills up.
Right.
And I look out there, and there's about I don't know 800 inmates out there.
Right.
And you had all the Aryan guys over here, and the black guys over there, and the Hispanics over there. They all kept to themselves, and the gay guys over to themselves too.
Did you notice? I looked up there. I didn't mean to cut you off. But I kept asking them, well, what's them women doing in the crowd? They had scarves over their head.
Yeah.
They had scarves over their head. They had Kool-Aid on their lips and blue Kool-Aid on their eyes. And I didn't know if Kool-Aid had told me that later on. But when Tommy and I first walked in there, they checked their bags.
They went crazy.
About thrown into prison. There was guys leaning on the bars, and we said, hey. And then guards said, well, they don't know you're here. We got them on so much loyalty. Those guys don't even know anybody's here. So we went back.
They had them on what? Thorazine.
Thorazine.
Yeah.
Thorazine.
What's that do? What's that do to you?
It's a sedation.
Sedation that just makes you so you're like a zombie. That was for the.
I wish I'd have known about it. I'd have went out there and got some. I said, get me out of this damn place. Hey, so anyway, James, don't you hear this? I go out there in the first match with Tommy. The funny thing about a prison is that the heels are the baby faces.
Yes, sir.
And the baby faces are the heels. So when I walk out there, I'm a big hero. And Tommy get in there, boo, boo. and I got a abdominal stretch on Tommy, and I reached around and I got his trunks, and I'm pulling it up, which showed a bit of his butt cheek. Oh my God. They said, throw him out here, Dutch. We know what to do with that pretty boy. Tommy got mad as hell. And he kept saying, F this, man. F this. I said, what's wrong with you? I ain't taking this crap, man, from them. I says, well, leave, I guess. I don't know what to tell you to do. Leave. But he was a mad son of a guy. He didn't leave.
Right.
He wanted to.
So me and Bill Dundee went out there next, right?
Yeah.
And I grabbed the microphone and I said, let me tell you guys something. The reason why you're mad at me is when this is over, you're staying for years and years, and I'm walking straight out the gate. And Tommy said, shut your mouth, man. Don't say that. And I said, another thing is, you're mad at us. We're the kings around here, and you're a bunch of queens, right? Well, we got in the ring. I had that long blonde hair, tan, and Bill Dundee pulled my trunks down to my knees.
Oh, my God. They love that.
Oh, yeah.
I wish we had to tape that. I don't know why we didn't.
Well, we didn't have videos or cell phones, and if we did, we wouldn't have been allowed to take it in.
We had cameras, though. We could have got a camera in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'd have let us use it anyway.
Well, they told me, I said, well, where we dressed at, there were some guys sitting in there, and I said, well, who are you all? And they said, well, we're prisoners. And I'm thinking, my goodness, they were trustees, right? So I said, well, what kind of people we got out here? And they said, well, there's guys out there that shut people's knuckles off, shut their knuckles off with boat shutters, stabbing, killing, shooting. Dutch, I got another story. It just hit me. I want to share after we talk about this prison about a night that you and I and my brother and us stayed in Eastern Kentucky. Was one of the funniest stories. You probably don't remember, but that prison was really something. To wrestle there in that prison.
Well, let me tell you something. You may have seen this guy, James. They had a guy there that was about 6'8" and long hair, and he wore sunglasses, and he stood all by himself. He wasn't with the supremacy guys, and he wasn't with the black. He wasn't with the Hispanics. He wasn't with the gay. He was alone, and all the other inmates left him alone. Right. And you notice there was no guards down there with us either.
Did you know what they told me if they riot? They said if they riot, bend over and kiss your butt goodbye because there's no guns on the yard. He said they'll be slamming each other tonight on the floors in their cells. But go ahead, just to give you a little preface.
So I asked one of the trustees, I said, who is that guy standing there all by himself? He said, oh, God, that's Tex or something. I said, what's he in here for? He said, well, one night he went out. He's a motorcycle guy. And he went out and ended up killing 5 people in one night. So the inmates knew that, so they left him alone.
Right.
Because they told me they respect people who murder. If they kill somebody, they stay away from them. If they're really violent, beat people up, they stay away from them. It's all the other people they beat the crap out of.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
I could not wait to get out of that place.
Right.
Oh my God.
Hey Bobby, what was the payoff? Do you remember?
Oh, it paid well.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think it was about $400.
We were pretty good. It was real good. What we did, we worked that show on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, and went to Louisville that night.
Yep, sure did.
I went to Louisville that night, so it was a double shot.
Cold as hell. I remember that.
Yeah.
Cold as a. I asked the guy, like you were talking, I said, what if these guys riot? That trustee said, well, you're on your own, buddy.
Yeah, you are.
On your own.
You really? Think about it.
So I remember checking in. They take your bag and they search it. I mean, they really search it. Then it goes through to the other little room. They search it again. I went, well, hell, you just searched it over there.
Right.
And they looked at me like, shut the F up. I went, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said too much.
Right.
But it was crazy. And it was loud in there, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was
Prisons
like a
was
major
loud.
arena.
Oh, man.
And you're right. See, I didn't mind being a heel because I was a heel at the beginning of my career. But Tommy was going nuts. He didn't like it.
He knew what they wanted. He knew what they wanted to do with him.
Oh, I know. He would have been on the main force of the buffet.
But you did. Oh, you loved it in there. I could tell by watching you work that day.
No, I had fun.
You and Dundee had a great match.
We enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We had a great time.
So how that works, James, is I work for Tommy first.
Right.
And then Bill works the second match. And then we all come back in a tag team.
Yes.
So,
Probably.
It's about an hour show.
That's it.
And we're gone.
Yeah.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
And they wanted to feed us. And I went, I don't know, guys. I don't know if I want to. I want to eat it. I think I need to go down the road to a Burger King or something. Get the hell out of there.
Yeah. It was bad. It was when them doors were shut behind us. It was like I was being closed in, you know. We went behind. We were in the middle of the yard in the arena. We were in the prison with the door slamming behind us.
Oh, you know? It was very loud. I never will forget that. I said, I was thinking, what if they have a riot and we're stuck in here and we can't get out?
We'd be in trouble.
What do we do?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we'd have been in trouble.
I guess we'd have sent Tommy over that big 6'8" guy.
We said, okay, we're going to sacrifice a member of our group. Tommy, get out there. Hey, Bobby used to live with me.
Yes.
In Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Yes.
Oh, you remember that, Bobby?
Yes, I remember. You guys were real nice. I had came from I think I came from a broken arm, and I was trying to get started back in. And you and Kathy had a home for wayward wrestlers, and
wayward wrestlers.
And I was wayward. You trying to take me under your wing, help me out.
Bobby asked me one time. He said, "What do I do to get booked a lot here?" I says, "Start carrying Bill Dundee around. Remember, letting him travel with you."
You did.
And all of a sudden, I look at Bobby. He's on all the big shows, and I'm on the shit shows. I said, "Wait a minute," because Dundee was on the good ones. He was the booker then.
Yeah,
and he just took Bobby with him.
Right.
Asked Bobby one week. I said, "What'd you make this week, Bobby?" Bobby said, $1,200. I said, "What?" I didn't make anywhere close to $1,200. I was in the main event and all these other shows.
I had. What happened was Roy Rogers was leaving the territory. And see, James, this is something that people don't realize. And Roy Rogers rode with Bill Dundee everywhere.
Yeah.
And he was later Johnny Rich.
Yeah.
And Dutch said, "Bobby, Roy's leaving. You need to ride with Bill Dundee, get with Bill Dundee like you said." It was really one of the biggest, smartest business moves I ever made, because I would be working to open a match and making just as much as the other guys were making, and them. So I would thank you, Judge, so much. Thank you.
Did you ever work Mid-Atlantic in Charlotte?
I never did. I never worked prior to going over there in about 88, 87.
Did you ever work Florida?
One time.
Yeah.
One time. And what it was, we were leaving Mid-South, and Eddie Graham wanted us to come to Florida. And Rich Von Erich wanted us to go to Dallas, and we were in Louisiana. I told Tommy, I said, "Tommy, I know you're from Florida, but let's move to Texas. It's a shorter move." But we had to go down and do shows for Eddie Graham. And, and everything. Bill had sent us down there. But I met him. I think you were working the territory then. You might have been booking Florida at that time.
I was booking, but not when you guys come down.
Yeah, but I mean, you were. I think you might have been in there. I think you might have been there. I'm not for sure. David Patterson was the same. had
Yeah, he was there.
up there.
Yeah, he
yeah.
was there. He
We then
was.
went and did a couple of shows, and that was it.
I'm working in Oklahoma or Mid-South. And sometimes they would send talent there. I'm telling James here. They would send talent from the Mid-South down to Houston.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
And I was doing something with Bobby. We had a match one night and had about 10,000 people in that building, right? And they were loud.
Yes.
And I had the bullwhip with me.
Oh, yes.
And I said, well, we'll wrap it up, Bobby. Somehow as I will go to throw the whip and you grab it. And all of a sudden drop kick me or something. And I'll lose the whip and you get up. Oh, I got it now. I got it. And I was going to start rolling out. Well, and I had taught Bobby how to throw it, I thought. And he come across my body one time, which was okay. And the second time I was, the ropes were right here. That whip, the end of it come and hit me right on the nose.
And you wore glasses then, Dutch, remember? You had to wear
Oh.
glasses back then.
We had what?
You wore glasses back then, so you needed your nose to put your glasses on.
Oh, man. He hit me so hard. It hurt so bad. I got out and the people just screamed. And I got mad. Now I picked the chair up and I was trying to throw it in. And I was so mad, I hit the top rope and the chair come back and hit me. Oh, that was another big pop. Oh, my God. And I look over at Bobby and he's shaking his butt. That was one of the deals. He had my whip. And did I throw the chair at you and hit you?
Yes, you did. You about broke my leg.
I threw that chair sidearm in there and it hit Bobby, knocked him down. He went, what the hell? And I remember that night or the next day he called me, hey, man, I'm sorry about last night. What happened? I told him, I said, well, if you'd have come out right then, I said, we'd have had one hell of a fight and I told him what happened. I didn't mean to do it. But thinking back on it now, it was one of those things that happened. We couldn't even plan to happen now.
No.
We just couldn't do it.
Can I share my perspective real quick, Dutch? And for James and for everybody? Back then, Dutch was real hairy, black, dark beard, hair everywhere. And when he turned around after I hit him with that bullwhip, all I could see was a big red nose going, womp, 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 womp. And he picked that chair up and threw it at that David, hit him in the face.
Hit me in the nose again.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming.
And the more you're shaking and screaming, the more the crowd's going nuts, cheering.
I remember where I got that chair. I grabbed that chair from my old man. He's kind of walking around there. Give me that chair. I did it. It was crazy.
You threw that thing sideways. It was like a helicopter hit me in the
Hey, if you hadn't have been there, it would have sailed off into the crowd.
Oh, I know. Hey, it was a force behind that chair. Like Bobby Fulton, if I could get my hands on you right now, I would kill you. I felt
Hey, where was it? We were having a match, and Tommy got mad again, and he left the ring. You remember that? It was a Sunday afternoon show. It was about 110 degrees.
Right.
It was hot as hell.
Right.
And he got mad, and you were taking on both me and Bill by yourself, and the people going nuts. And Tommy couldn't stand it, I guess. He came back, and he didn't have to come back. Hell, you were beating our ass by yourself. So you don't remember where that was? That was in one of the smaller towns.
Probably should have been in Arkansas or something somewhere. You know, we used to go up and work in Arkansas and some of them small towns and a lot of things. But I always enjoyed our matches, Dutch, with you and Bill. I mean, you guys were an incredible team. I mean, really, really. I don't know if you remember the angle they kind of worked. They had little Coco still Bill Dundee's jumpsuit and wear. Yeah. You remember that?
In Memphis?
No, Louisiana.
Who'd you steal it with?
Coco, the little black midget.
Oh, yeah.
He had the little Bill Dundee's jumpsuit around in the ring, little pink jumpsuit, this and that. Was part
When's
of
the
our
last time? When's the last time you talked to Bill?
It's been about a month or so ago.
How's he doing?
He's doing all right. He's hanging in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he'll be 80. I think he'll be 78 or 80 October the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly. He always done me right, Dutch. I mean, you know,
Well, I guess so. You drove him all around. Got booked on the
I
good
know,
shows. While I'm out on food stamps, you're eating steaks.
I would be working in Memphis, and Dutch would be working in Forest City, Arkansas.
Yeah, I'd ride through Memphis. Well, I should be here. Go over there, 200 people or whatever.
Hey, was you there tonight? Was you there tonight in Bible, Arkansas, when Plowboy Frasier was walking?
Hit his head?
Yes, and knocked himself out right there in the lobby.
Sure did.
And you couldn't get around him. He was laying there in that Lone Ranger outfit, that little mask on, that gray outfit.
Oh, my God.
Almost 7 foot tall, 500 pounds, laying in the middle of the lobby. Right there, people couldn't hardly walk around. James, they couldn't get him up. They had to wait for him to come to.
James, how tall was Plowboy?
He's about 7, about 6'10",
He's about 7
6'11".
foot tall.
Yeah.
He's walking in this little arena, and they had some low overhangs, like the beams were low. And he was arguing, and he's really a country talking guy. And some fans said something to him. Well, let me tell you something, neighbor, blah, 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 blah. And he turned to walk in, hit right into that iron beam, and down he went. Hell, he was down about 10 minutes.
Yeah, they
couldn't get him up.
They almost had to cancel intermission.
People are giving him hell. Oh, my God. Now, we had some good times, but starved to death sometimes, but we had some good times.
Do you remember how Dutch? Do you remember how Plowboy was sat with his arms?
Oh, yeah.
They would be.
That should be
like
anatomy. That should be impossible to sit that way.
He was like double jointed. His arms would be thrown out here, and he would look at you when you walked in the dressing room. He would say, "Hey, neighbor, you need some shoes?" Remember, he sold shoes and stuff.
Oh, yeah, he sold everything. This guy would come in, James. His name is Plowboy Frasier.
Uncle Elmer
in WWE, and he sold everything out of his bag. He sold watches. He sold watches that weren't Rolexes, but he sold them. And shoes and underwear, all kind of stuff. Deodorant.
He was like Mr. Haney.
What do you need? What do you need? I can get it.
Yes.
Anyway, hey, Bobby, this is a wrestling interview, so I want to ask you something. Yes. You've seen the wrestling today.
Yes.
How would it compare in your eyes to years gone by?
Well, today wrestling is not wrestling. It should be called maneuvers, pose, and
tumbling.
Tumbling. It's the word wrestling has nothing to do with it. Vince was right when he took the word wrestling out. Sports entertainment. Because very seldom, I don't know, there was a pay-per-view not long ago where a guy grabbed the headlock and took the guy over at WrestleMania, and the crowd went nuts. They had side headlock takeover, and they don't, there's no comparison. I don't take nothing away from them about being great athletes, but when you start slamming people on the edge of the ring that don't make no noise, and the only thing you're going to do is hurt somebody. I don't understand it, and a lot of the stuff they do today. But the boys are the ones that's hurting themselves by doing this stuff. If they would just get in the ring and work, I think what's lacking today in wrestling is emotion. The fans' emotion.
And they don't tell any in AEW. I don't think they tell stories.
There's no story. But you know what I heard that they do? They let the commentators tell a story in WWE and AEW. But that's wrong. The wrestlers should be telling stories. The fans are not vested interest in them. And there's no emotion there, just like years ago, Dutch, when you and Jerry Lawler worked that angle and you guys wrestled each other in Memphis. Neither one was a heel or a baby face, and it got down to finally the barbed wire. The people was emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Some towns, they liked you a little more. Some towns, they liked Lawler. But it was a contest, and it was emotions. And that's what they don't have today, is an emotional connection. And I say if they had that in the equation, they could draw so much money, more money, and make so much more money by having that emotional connection with the fans, but they don't have it.
Well, you're talking a little bit earlier, James was saying how many belts they have in AEW and Ring of Honor. It's
Right.
like 13 or 14 belts.
Right. It's ridiculous.
And I said, that's too many.
Yeah.
I mean, less is more.
Yes.
What makes a belt stand out more than any other belt?
Right.
And they don't tell a story. They just book a match.
Right.
And they go
right.
to the ring.
I
think a wrestling match could draw on the first time around, but after that, you got to tell the story.
Yes, you do.
Or what's the purpose?
Yes, you do. It's all about the emotion.
But now you say that, people said, "Oh, what the hell do you know?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you
my
this.
opinion.
Let me tell you this. Watch them matches like you showed from the match earlier with us, and watch the crowd out there. Watch them jumping up and down, and you don't see that on Raw and them and stuff a lot. You know, where the people are that unless it's a top match or something like that. I went to one of their shows one time, and the only time people
AEW,
and WWE, the only time the people react is when the music played.
Yep.
They would jump up and down then. They would wrestle for 3 or 4 minutes. They would go back and play the music. The people would be up dancing again. And that's wrong. I remember when before they even played music to go to the ring, you would either have boos, a chorus of boos, or a chorus of cheers. You could tell where the wrestler was in the arena by how loud it got. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. I call that reading the room.
Yes.
It's like a comic going on stage. You read the room, and then you know what they'll pop to.
Right,
That's why the start of the match are usually slow, because the heel is trying to see what they're buying. Sometimes they buy bullshit. Sometimes they buy serious stuff. So you're looking for that vein that you can get into, and so the people will enjoy it.
Right.
Like I'm saying, you're not the judge of it. I'm not the judge of it. The fans are.
Yes. And
you tell me if you like it.
That is what's missing. They get in the back. They take them 3 hours to plan out a 7-minute match. Get out there. I've seen it before. 3 hours in the back planning out 7 minutes. Get out to the ring. The people's not buying what they're selling. Then if they miss a spot, they're all messed up because they don't know what to do next. And then they'll go back until they get that spot in, because their mind, they've been in the back for that 3 or 4 hours. Next I do this, next I do this, next I do this, next I do this. And that's all they're thinking about. That's why they don't get no facial expressions anymore. Back then, we were in them big arenas. We would be selling with our faces. Now they got the camera in their face and a big thing, and the guy sitting there looking at himself while they're doing something to him. They're supposed to be beating the heck out of him, and they'll just be chewing gum with a straight face. I mean, I'd be selling or something, or you know, Dutch. We used to have to learn to make the facial expressions. That was a very important part of the match.
I didn't have to when I was working with you. I was like, Jim, stop, Bobby, please get off me.
You know, yeah. Dennis Chandry told me one time. He said I could be Dennis Chandry.
Dennis.
He said I could be laying on my back, or laying on my stomach with my face down, and I would know who had a hold of me. Bobby, Tommy. Bobby, Tommy.
Oh yeah.
Bobby, Tommy. He said I knew exactly the difference of it. You know.
So you're a promoter now.
I've been helping.
I mean,
myself.
you've been a promoter, but you just tell the folks about your show coming up.
Saturday, September 30th in Telejati, Ohio. We have an event.
Is that a Saturday?
Saturday night, Telejati, Ohio. We have an event. It's world. I know this is hard. World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling, and it's WCPBTW.com. It's the Great Fall Bash 2. The Hitman Bret Hart is one of our headliners on the show. We have a fan.
Bret Hart is. You got Bret Hart is there.
Bret Hart's there.
That's good.
We have Davey Boy Smith Jr. We have Nick Aldis. We have the Boogeyman, not Jimmy Valiant, but the other guy. We have the Faces of Fear, Bushwhacker Luke, probably 40-some guys that are there. We'll have a fan fest from 12 till 5, then a wrestling show from 7 till 9 or 10, But it's all in one day, Chillicothe, Ohio. There's a lot of people that's talked a lot about our events and stuff. We got people that's flying from Greece to come watch this particular show for whatever reason. And we have people travel from all over the United States to come watch our event. We're really excited about it.
Wow, that's good. Flying from Greece.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
They must really want to see this show.
Right. I'll tell you what, Dutch. We have I don't know how to send this to you. I don't know if you can see this, but this is my girlfriend just showed you. I don't know how to do this stuff, but this is some of the guys that's on it.
What is that?
It's a little. It's got Faces of Fear. We got your buddy on there. The Soul Sacred Godfather, Nick Aldis, Downtown Bruno, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Mickey James.
They're all at this. They're all at this convention.
All at this convention roster show. Charlie Blanchard, Jimmy Garvin, tons of guys. Ming.
Dang.
We do it 2 times a year. We usually have.
Hell, how can I go to that? I want to go.
Well, you know what?
I want to buy a ticket.
I want to book you on it, but you never answered your phone.
I know it. I'm like that sometimes.
I know, but I
was probably up on the next one. I was probably doing work release that day.
I got you. I got you.
So. But anyway, before I go, go ahead.
I appreciate you asking me to come on the show. I have a hard time talking, and I appreciate everybody out there listening. I love the wrestling business. I really, really still do, and I'm just glad to still be out here doing little things and this and that. And I enjoy your show.
I saw one of your. It was a picture of you. I guess it was on Twitter, and you were on a plane. Right. You were going somewhere. I saw that. That's how I kind of keep up with you. What is your brother? What is your brother doing now?
My brother Jackie. He lives in.
Is he out of prison yet?
Yeah, he just got out. As a matter of fact, did you hear about that guy that escaped out of prison a couple of weeks ago up in Pennsylvania?
I did hear that. And
my brother got out the same way right before him. That's how he knew how to get out. He watched my brother climb that wall.
Walking up the wall? No.
Yeah, my brother got out. My brother got out about 15 minutes before him, and that guy was sitting over there. Said, "Well, if he can do it, I can do it."
You hear about that, James?
Yeah, no, it didn't reach over here.
Well, a guy he escaped from prison. They had 2 walls, and he put his feet against one wall, and he was on his hands on the other wall, and walked up the wall.
Yes,
and got on top of the roof, jumped the fence, and he was gone for like 2 weeks. I don't know where he went.
A murderer.
They got him back now, but
right. But let me go back. My brother's not been in prison, Dutch, so that'll be out on Twitter next. Dutch Mantell announced Bobby Fulton's brother just was released from prison.
Yeah. He's at large. He's at large now.
At large, yeah. Don't tell. You know what's funny?
Hey, he's at large. He's gone, but he will make your convention on September the 30th.
Yeah,
but don't tell anybody.
That's right. Call me the booker. You got to tell me he's on the lam right now, so he won't answer his phone. You know.
All right. Hey, James, you got any questions?
Yeah, Bobby, are you up for just one more question before we let you go?
I'm here for you, man.
Dude, right, okay. So I was thinking about what I could ask you. My wheels were turning in my head, and then I realised that I think it was you, the Fantastics, versus the Midnight Express in Dallas in '85, where Jim Cornette outside was handcuffed to a giant of a man called Little John.
That was at Texas Stadium.
Texas Stadium.
Little John, 7'8". Little John. Dutch probably knows who he is. Big John
What's his
Harris.
name?
Big John Harris. He was
I
7
remember
foot
him.
8.
He was called Silo Sam occasionally as well, if you know that name.
He worked in Memphis.
How many people attended that show? 40,000?
I don't know. I don't think it's that one. Maybe the first one. But I remember that show real well. As a matter of fact, working in that Texas Stadium show. James, what was you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you, is Little John Silo Sam the worst giant in wrestling history?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. They brought him out.
I like when Bobby goes, well,
they brought him out on TV, and the first thing he did was got down on his knees in the ring. And I said, get up, man. Why would you do that? So I ripped him so much. We were going to Lubbock, Texas. I said, hey, listen, you have gotten so much fan mail, they're going to have to bring it to the arena in a wheelbarrow. Oh, he was going nuts. He thought it was really something, you know. But yeah, it was hard. He was hard to do business with.
Who discovered him first? Where was he found?
You know, he was in that Pee Wee Herman's movie, right?
No.
He was in the movie Big Adventure. And I don't know what happened, but James, later on, I wrestled for him one time, right? In Maryland. He was running shows. And he was running this arena where he paid the rent until 9 o'clock. Well, he didn't take into consideration that the show might run over. So at 9 o'clock, the power was shut off. And there the money from the gate was. And all of a sudden, it went. They just brought him the gate money in and set it down. And the lights went out. And I heard him say, grab a gun, somebody. He thought he was getting robbed, right? But then he finally realized that, you know, how crazy the business is, Dutch. You know, all of a sudden they bring the gate money in. As soon as it sits down on the table, the lights go black. And I mean, there ain't a light nowhere. Everything's out. He only paid the rent on 9 o'clock. And it was over. But he was a real different guy. He had a big growth on the side. If you look past his blue jeans, it was like a basketball sticking out of his gut. And he was in some pretty rough shape, actually, you know, Little John.
Yeah,
I know the name, but I never met that guy.
From what I've seen, it's amazing. He was like 7'8" or something, yet he was still built like a pear.
Yes, he was like a pear. And one of his legs was about, it was because he had something wrong with him, it was real big round. I mean, and the other leg was skinny. So, yeah, he struggled to get around, actually, you know. But he ran in the mid-'80s. He went on a tour like he was Hulk Hogan. And he was going to little towns and drawing money because 7'8", right? I mean, just to see that alone. And he drew some money in some towns being outlaw promoter, you know. But I didn't hear anything of him after that. But check him out. Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. He's in one of those movies.
Did they ever do one of those things where they got him on the back of a trailer and just drove him around the like town or something like that, or did they not do that with him?
Probably done stuff like that. Yes, yes, probably done stuff like that. That's how you would promote back then, you know, and just have your picture put in the paper, right? He'd go meet the mayor of the town. Here he is, 7'8". He'll be wrestling tomorrow night. Everybody come out and see him. I mean, it's a spectacle, you know. It's a lot different than it is now. We see people like that, but yeah, he was different.
See, I told, because I'd heard a story that Tony Atlas had to do the same thing. It was like Tony Atlas and, I don't know, Larry Zbyszko and other people had to do the same thing. And Dutch was like, no, that was something from the carnival days. They wouldn't like parade, whatever. And then I'd interviewed Tony Atlas really soon afterwards, and he said, tell Dutch, I promise you, they got him on the back of a trailer in like the mid-70s, late 70s, had him hit the pose. You'll see him, you know, you'll see him at so-and-so arena or armoury.
Right. Well, let me tell you this. When I wrestled for World Class Wrestling out of Dallas, our TV went into Israel, right? They took us over to Israel, and it was unbelievable. And here's how they promoted us. They walked us down the street, and here we was walking down the streets of Haifa, Tel Aviv, different cities in Israel, and people would take us in their house and put the video in and said, we taped the Saturday night. They told us that Saturday night at 8 o'clock when wrestling was on TV, there was no bombs, no fighting, no nothing. They paraded us through the streets. And people couldn't believe it because they were watching us on TV from America. And now they looked out the window and there we were walking down the street of their town. As a matter of fact, so much so that I got a picture, I didn't realize it then, of us meeting Shimon Peres, who was the then prime minister. David Manning came to us and said, hey, Shimon Peres wants to meet you guys. We said, who? And he said, the prime minister, he's equivalent to the president of the United States. We said, really? So we went and met him. I took my pictures with him. It wasn't until probably 10 years ago, I was looking at the pictures. I said, man, that's Shimon Peres. I didn't realize I met him. And when we were in Israel at the same time, Sylvester Stallone was there, filming First Blood. And a bunch of the guys went and met him. And a guy by the name of Jeep Swenson was with us. Did you ever hear of Jeep Swenson, Dutch and James?
Mm-hmm.
And when Sylvester Stallone seen him, he fell in love with him. He wanted to put him in the movies because Jeep had arms that was unbelievable and a big guy, right? But Jeep never got into Stallone's movies, but he was in the Batman movie. Remember, he was Bane in Batman with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was over there in Israel with us too, Jeep Swenson.
Yeah, I saw that in the cinema, no less.
Yeah.
Gosh, the worst Batman ever as well. I'm not blaming that on Jeep Swenson, everybody, but anyway. Listen, Dutch, do you want to do the closeout then?
Well, I think this is your expertise. How do you like James, Bobby? You like him?
him? He's a nice guy.
No, don't.
I watch you. Listen, I watch you guys on the internet. I'll see your shows come up. I like it. I like what James does. I really like it.
I think he's the best at what he does.
You see, I PayPal Dutch. I PayPal Bobby before this happened. So
yes,
this is why I get the compliments.
Yes. But no, even if Dutch wasn't here, and James, I would say, I listen. I think it's really nice. I like the way you keep the stuff alive and talk about the current events. And I listen to you guys all the time. I watch them. I like what you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. I appreciate very much you coming on.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of these because I can't talk very well. But for my friend, I've come on and do it. But most of the time, people ask me, I said, nah, I would rather not. Because a lot of people don't understand, you know. And a lot of people just don't understand that what people go through in life, you know.
No kidding.
Well, we're here.
Pulling for you, brother.
I know it. Love you. Give Kathy a hug. Amanda, the family. You know, I was in Florida, and Amanda came to see me, and Dutch sat at home.
Where?
When I was in Florida, Amanda and Will came and seen me. Probably about 7 months ago. I said, where's Dutch? Huh? I was doing NWA taping.
Where's Dutch? He's not here. Oh, you was down here for NWA.
Yeah.
I see. I know.
Yeah. Amanda came over and Will came over and we got to see each other and everything. And I keep up with your family on Facebook, as a matter of fact. But James, honestly, I like what you do. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I will do indeed. Thank you so much. I'll on that note, with all that flattery on me, I'm going to close up the podcast. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you want to submit your questions for Dutch Mantell to answer on the Tuesday shows, then go to questionsfordutch@gmail.com and submit your questions there. God, we're getting so many, it's unbelievable. We'll never power through them. But for now, thank you so much, Dutch. Thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us as well. And to both of you, we the people.
We the people.
Right.